World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 481, Drooling Profusely 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Night, heavy fog, and an icy plain, this was the ultimate land. A bone-chilling aura washed over them. The mist was endless, and the place was nothing like they had imagined. It wasn't a sealed-off realm, on the contrary, it stretched endlessly to the horizon. Perhaps what lay before them was not an icy plain after all, but rather a frozen sea, its surface relatively smooth, its edges lost within the dense fog. In the distance, clusters of true sun fire flickered and danced. Were it not for their light, this place would have been as dark as the deepest abyss. Representatives from all the major organizations had gathered here in great numbers. Yet, upon arriving, they dispersed slightly, appearing sparse and insignificant, like a few raindrops merging into the sea. Could this be a grotto heaven? Grandmaster Silver Rat stood upright, stroking his handlebar mustache, his 2 golden bean-like eyes gleaming with sharp light. A wondrous place, an old monster grinned. In this era, even if a grotto heaven existed, it would be incomplete and suspended high in the 9 heavens. To find such a place within the remnant vein of flying immortal mountain made many people's eyes burn with desire. They were incredibly excited and filled with anticipation. The timing is perfect. Heaven blesses us. The yellow-haired old monster exclaimed in admiration. Everyone understood his meaning. The divine chains had just decayed, and they had arrived at the perfect moment. Had they come any earlier, they wouldn't have been able to enter. Had they come any later, someone else might have beaten them to it. A grandmaster of the variant lineage, a being with an exceptionally keen sense of smell, flared his nostrils. Then, vanishing as silently as a ghost, he sped off toward the depths of the frozen sea. Huh, I smell a faint fragrance. Some people realized it a moment later, and then they all set off, transforming into one streak of light after another, charging into the depths of the mist. Many speculated that the place where extreme yin transforms into extreme yang could reverse life and death. If a medicinal herb grew there, it would conservatively be estimated as an earth immortal grade precious medicine. After advancing over 20 li, a faint fragrance wafted through the air, giving everyone a feeling of floating in paradise. However, the anomalous Grandmaster leading the way suddenly halted, casting suspicious glances all around him. What's wrong? Someone asked. I felt as though someone brushed against me. Fortunately, I dodged in the nick of time, the anomalous Grandmaster replied, his expression grave. Another Grandmaster stepped forward to examine him, circling around him once. His expression instantly shifted to one of shock. Imprinted upon the first Grandmaster's back was a pitch-black palm seal, starkly conspicuous against his form. Instantly, the crowd erupted in a commotion. Had a Grandmaster truly been struck by a ghost hand? Many of the group members pressed their backs against one another, scanning their surroundings warily. The fog was so thick in this region that distant scenery was completely obscured, as if they had stumbled into a frozen sea of mist. It doesn't matter. If that thing truly possessed the power to harm a Grandmaster, it would have struck lethally by now, the Silver Silkworm Grandmaster said, having transformed into an old man only a palm's span tall. Suddenly, a piercing scream rang out. Smoke billowed from a young man's back as a pitch-black palm seal expanded, erupting into flames that began to burn him. He became a living torch, rolling on the ground in agony and melting deep into the ice. Someone tried to save him, but it was already too late. In a mere instant, he was reduced to a pile of ash. It seems some creature may have emerged from the true sunfire, but it's no big deal. It can only bully the younger generation, a Grandmaster remarked. Many of the younger cultivators inwardly cursed. Does he have any idea what he's saying? They thought. This is a serious threat to many of us, yet he says it's no big deal. Suddenly, a demon cultivator struck. With a wave of his hand, black light swirled and covered the area ahead, locking onto a faint phantom in the fog and dragging it forward. The phantom struggled violently before erupting in intense flames and quickly dissipating into nothingness. That's right. It's a spiritual phantom born from the true sunfire. Someone laughed and remarked, clearly, the true sunfire ahead has gained sentience. It has developed roots, and can be transplanted, allowing us to take it away and cultivate it. This is priceless. What had previously struck many as a terrifying phenomenon now seemed to have turned into a stroke of good fortune. The unknown is often the most frightening thing. Once the true nature of something is understood, it no longer seems quite so sinister. Although many remained on guard, they were visibly much more at ease. The group pressed forward once again. The faint shadows appeared a few more times, and even the strongest among them, those in the Grandmaster realm, were forced back or even dispersed by the attacks. No more catastrophic incidents occurred. The fragrance grew stronger. Faintly, they could see ripples stirring in the depths of the frozen sea, with brilliant, rain-like light ascending toward the night sky. They were close. Everyone realized that the source was likely a longevity elixir. Just ahead, the air fluctuated between extreme yin qi and extreme yang qi, as the power to reverse life and death flowed continuously. We're almost at the destination. Many looked at each other with strange glints in their eyes, wary and guarded. Everyone knew that the closer they got, the more dangerous it would become. Qinming stood ready, his 9-colored sword qi suspended beside him. Long ago, an unimaginably powerful great formation stood here. Fortunately, it has decayed and no longer functions. Someone exclaimed in relief, but many others tensed up. For when external pressure is no longer a threat, internal strife often follows. Brother One Sword Yijian, we might say we've grown to know each other through conflict. Back then, we happened to meet and engaged in friendly sparring and competition, never fighting to the death. On the frozen sea, Elena of the Black Tower civilization sent a divine sense message to Qinming, attempting to form a secret alliance. Alright, we can say we've grown to know each other through conflict as well. We can certainly get along amicably and explore this place together, Qinming replied with a nod. In the dense fog, the various factions separated, each keeping a distance and remaining wary of the others. Saint of the Jade Capital. A buzzing sound echoed in Qinming's ear. A silver-spotted ladybug from the Strange Insect Alliance was communicating with him secretly. It was also extending an olive branch, hoping to avoid any misunderstandings and, if possible, to advance and retreat together. No problem. The more friends, the more paths. I'm willing to walk this path of friendship with you. Qinming replied. Shortly after, even the group of demon cultivators extended an olive branch to him. Clearly, Qinming's earlier performance had made all factions extremely wary, and they seemed unwilling to provoke him. I observe that the fellow Taoist shares similar traits with us. We must be kindred spirits. The prodigy among the demon cultivators said with great enthusiasm. Qinming reflected on his own aura and demeanor. What part of me looks like a villain? He wondered. To make them say such things and look at me with the eyes of someone admiring a fellow predator. He desperately wanted to ask the man to point out exactly what it was so he could change it immediately. In this relatively short span of time, Qinming's consciousness spiritual light flickered violently as he secretly made pacts with 6 different groups to advance or retreat together. Frowning, he warned Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran that this region was likely to descend into chaos. Various factions were forming secret alliances, and bloody conflicts could erupt at any moment. We know, Li Qingyu replied. Our team is on friendly terms with 3 organizations, and we've already agreed to join forces. But it's getting complicated, she added. Li Qingyu explained that even among just 4 teams, private communications had already created inner and outer circles, dividing them into even more intricate cliques. Zhang Ran chimed in, among the 4 teams, there are already 5 circles. No, wait, now there are 6. Qinming was stunned. The relationships were so complex that even within the 4 closely allied teams, they had further subdivided into smaller cliques. At that moment, a 7th faction reached out to Qinming, signaling a desire for friendly relations. This caught him off guard. It was the demigod organization. The snow-white-robed, moon goddess, was nearby, offering him a gentle, goodwill-filled smile. Qinming nodded. Through his resonance technique, he had already learned that the centipede pearl originated from this organization. Obviously, he was wary of the demigod organization. Could they have sensed something? Nevertheless, since they were approaching him with smiles and apparent friendliness, there was no need for him to immediately turn hostile. Brother Yi Jian, I see that yellow-haired old monster harbors hostility toward you. How about we deal with him first? A demon cultivator transmitted secretly. That's worth considering, Qinming nodded. The old fogies have profound cultivation, and it seems several grandmasters have already joined forces. They are very unfriendly to us, so we need to take them seriously, the Demon Cultivation Organization informed him. They had also recruited the Black Tower Civilization and the Strange Insect Alliance, preparing to strike the hostile grandmasters. After a brief exchange, the young powerhouse in golden robes from the demon cultivators transmitted, strike. Qinming's expression turned grave. He pushed his essence chi to its absolute limit, his physical body radiating a brilliant light. He transformed the 9-colored sword chi into the 9-colored sky sword in his hand, its sword light piercing the heavens. At this moment, he retreated instead of advancing, his figure flashing and leaving behind a trail of afterimages as if he were about to withdraw from this area. Opposite him, the yellow-haired old monster, wielding a long, black spear, was incomparably valiant. He emitted a terrifying sonic boom as he crossed the night mist, as if he were about to shatter the very fabric of space, a display of unbridled, arrogant might. Crucially, the demon cultivators and the members of the demigod organization struck simultaneously, all targeting the old saint of Jade Capital, One Sword. Qinming moved across the frozen sea like a flickering wisp of light. However, the group wasn't lacking in people like him, those who possessed special weapons and godlike speed. Even the strange insect alliance and the Black Tower civilization had joined the fray. The 7 organizations that had earlier allied with Qinming had actually turned against him all at once, launching a fierce attack on the old Saint of Jade capital. Undoubtedly, this was a situation akin to a pack of tigers hunting a dragon. The 7 great organizations had long since reached a tacit understanding in secret. Approaching, One Sword, was a ruse. Their true intention was to join forces and eliminate him. Qinming had never trusted them from the very beginning. Indeed, when members of the demigod organization approached him, his suspicions reached their peak. Otherwise, had he charged at the eccentric old man with the yellow hair moments ago, he would undoubtedly be trapped in a desperate situation right now, overpowered and obliterated by the combined attack of a multitude of experts. Even with Qinming's preparations, the 7 great organizations had numerous experts. Such an encirclement, combined with their full-scale effort to kill him, had plunged him into a terrifyingly dangerous situation. The organizations from the top civilizations each brought at least one special weapon. They launched a fierce attack, shattering the frozen sea and tearing through the night veil, creating a terrifying spectacle. Not far away, Li Qingyu erupted in a blazing aura of fire and instantly joined the fray, unleashing divine fire that engulfed the area. Cries of agony echoed as enemies were incinerated. Zhang Ran, clad in her 9-colored battle armor and wielding the heavenly halberd, descended like a mystic maiden. With each swing of her weapon, heads flew, and blood sprayed high into the air. In this entire region, Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran were the only 2 individuals Qinming could truly trust. The moment he sensed that something was amiss, he had sent them a telepathic warning. Consequently, the 2 women, acting as if they had been poised and waiting for this very moment, immediately rushed into the fray to assist him in breaking through the encirclement. The leader of the squad to which Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran had been attached was left utterly dumbfounded. He had never imagined that 2 such powerful mermaids, powerful beauties who had been lying dormant beneath the water's surface all along, were actually right there beside him. The false old saint. He's not in the 5th realm. Oleg of the Black Tower civilization's eyes shone with divine light, his battle spirit soaring as he sought to lock onto One Sword. Amidst the chaos, Qinming swung his 9-colored heaven sword, unleashing the full power of his primordial chaos force. He clashed blades and swords relentlessly, his body drenched in blood. Most of it, however, belonged to his enemies. However, he himself trembled violently, blood trickling from the corners of his mouth. Among the 7 major organizations were top-tier saints, warriors clad in liquid metal battle suits, who had joined forces to hunt him down. For anyone else, facing such a combined assault would have been an absolute death trap. Qinming bore no external injuries, as his 8 trigrams battle armor protected him from the impact of spears and great swords. Yet, he was repeatedly struck by a relentless, overwhelming force that made him cough up mouthfuls of blood. Eventually, he managed to fight his way out, guided by the 2 women who helped him break through the heavy encirclement. How impressive, he actually survived. He fought his way out by sheer force, said the moon goddess, gathering her flowing hair. On the tip of her finger rested a single drop of blood that Qinming had spilled. With a cold snort, Qinming caused the blood drop to explode into ashes. I suddenly find you somewhat familiar, spoke the blood god, a member of the demigod organization. Indeed, we have met, Qinming replied coldly. I once sought to join your organization, but you rejected me. The nearby observers exchanged strange glances. A figure of such power, a core disciple from the Jade capital, had been turned away by the demigod organization. The moon goddess and blood god's expressions shifted. They suddenly recalled a figure they had once found slightly unusual. They hadn't expected it to be this very opponent, a powerhouse capable of refining the 9-colored sword chi. It's for the best, the moon goddess said calmly. A person like that would only bring trouble to our ranks. Makes sense, the blood god nodded. Earlier, they had sensed the aura of the centipede pearl on One Sword, and had gone to great lengths to persuade the demon cultivators they were friendly with to join the hunt. Fine. We'll settle this later, Qinming said, looking at them. Brother One Sword, I'm sorry. Elena, a saintess of the Black Tower civilization, her silver hair flowing with light, showed a look of apology on her fair, beautiful face. What a green tea bitch. Zhang Ran commented. Her figure was as tall as a bamboo shoot, her black hair fluttering in the wind, her appearance peerless. At this moment, she stood in the 9-colored immortal light, surrounded by an ethereal and otherworldly aura. Elena said, Brother One Sword, it's mainly because you were too terrifying before. It seemed you were in the 5th realm and mastered the 9-colored sword chi. A Jade capital saint like that made all of us uneasy, so we had no choice but to join forces. Quite the no choice you claim to have. In that case, I, too, shall reluctantly set you all ablaze when the time comes, Li Qingyu said, her red lips parting slightly. Her figure was as graceful as a celestial willow in the wind, bathed in divine fire, like a true immortal attaining enlightenment in the flames, revealing her peerless elegance amidst her otherworldly aura. Why bother explaining to him? Just kill him. Oleg, a saint of the Black Tower civilization, spoke. He had previously distinguished himself within the territory of Jade Capital, having never suffered a single defeat. Now that he knew Qin Ming wasn't in the fifth realm, Oleg was completely at ease. His conviction was unwavering. His long golden hair billowed as he stepped forward, his deep-set eyes fixed on his target, a unique scepter held in his hand. Hey, fellow Taoist, our auras are quite similar. Come, let's get closer, the gold-robed young man leading the demon cultivators said to one sword, a sinister smile on his face. His aura was utterly demonic. Qin Ming glared at him, then swept his gaze over Oleg, the moon goddess, and the others. Wiping the blood from his nose and mouth, he declared, I'll remember this. And what if you do? Now that we've made our move, do you still think you can escape? The silver-spotted ladybug from the strange insect alliance sneered. I'll be back to kill you. Qin Ming shot at a sharp glance. Let's go. He then gestured for Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran to follow as they fled into the distance. The enemy had too many people, all at high cultivation levels. If they were surrounded, their situation would turn dire. At the same time, Qin Ming sent a telepathic message, Qingyu, give me some true sunfire. All right. A ball of divine flame flew from Li Qingyu's body, pure, flawless true sunfire that required no further refinement. Qin Ming immediately began circulating the Golden Crow Knight illuminating scripture. He needed to manifest the rooted true sunfire within his own body and fully integrate it with the corresponding scriptures. He had waited for this day for a long time, preparing to infuse his heart lamp with brilliant vitality. Perhaps today, he would achieve an extraordinary breakthrough and transformation. Pursue them. A group of people shouted as they surrounded him. The moon goddess, Oleg, and the gold-robed demon cultivator blocked Qin Ming's path of retreat, fearing he would escape this place. The silver-spotted ladybug and the yellow-haired old monster, among others, began the hunt. Hey, are you trying to transform into the great sun golden crow? Zhang Ran turned her head, seeing Qin Ming completely enveloped in golden radiance. Even when crossing the night mist, he seemed to stand within a blinding golden wheel. Qin Ming, Zhang Ran, and Li Qingyu fled together. Although they were caught in a dangerous life or death situation, they showed no signs of panic. Instead, they continued to exchange insights on their cultivation practices even as they fled. Zhang Ran also cultivated the Golden Crow Knight illuminating manual, while Li Qingyu possessed a deep mastery of the techniques required to rapidly refine true fire. Since they've cut off our retreat, why don't we just charge straight ahead, directly toward the ultimate land of fortune? Li Qingyu suggested. Qin Ming nodded. It might be a dangerous land, but it's worth a try. We'll disrupt their rhythm and force them to follow us to the ultimate land's end. Soon, the three of them charged into the depths of the frozen sea. We cannot let them lay their hands on the great fortune capable of reversing the cycle of yin and yang, life and death. Someone shouted. Stop them. A group of people pursued and intercepted them. In this area, blood mist rose from time to time, the remains of ordinary cultivators who had been crushed. Qin Ming, Li Qingyu, and Zhang Ran fought their way through the carnage, charging toward the frozen sea's edge. In truth, the 7 great organizations were all nursing their own hidden agendas. After confirming that one sword was not a 5th realm old saint, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Many now considered him no longer a lethal threat and began to harbor new, opportunistic schemes. Within the 7 organizations, various factions had formed at least a dozen secret cliques. Now, many were already plotting how to eliminate the next team in line. Consequently, after Qin Ming and his companions survived the initial, most brutal phase of the encirclement, they successfully carved a bloody path and broke away. The pursuing crowd behind them was far from united, already embroiled in a new round of open conflict and covert strife as they trailed the trio at a measured pace. So fragrant. It's refreshing to the soul, seeping straight into my spirit. Even Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran exclaimed, finding the temptation nearly irresistible. The fragrance filled their hearts, almost intoxicating them. Qin Ming, for his part, made no attempt to hide his reaction, he simply wiped the drool from his mouth. This was no exaggeration. Even the pursuers behind them, though further away, were salivating, drawn by the overwhelming floral scent. Oleg whispered, only 2 types of herbs in the world possess such a powerful fragrance, an irresistible allure, the highest grade demonic flower or the longevity elixir. I'm leaning toward the latter. Perhaps it's a combination of both, the longevity demonic flower. Alina's eyes sparkled. Even a saintess like her couldn't help but swallow greedily. One could only imagine just how incredibly extraordinary this floral fragrance truly was. The blood god gulped loudly, while the moon goddess covered her mouth with her sleeve, unwilling to compromise her image. If this old one doesn't obtain this divine medicine, I will never rest in peace for the rest of my life. The yellow-haired old monster growled. A swarm of strange insects, as if drunk, flew unsteadily, swaying back and forth. Qin Ming's entire body was flowing with true sunfire. He and the two women charged ahead, already nearing their destination. Fortunately, all the formations had decayed. It was unknown when they had been set up, but now this area was completely open to them. There are spiritual phantoms born from true sunfire here. Be careful, Li Qingyu warned. Zhang Ran, too, was on high alert, standing firm with her heavenly halberd in hand. She vigilantly scanned her surroundings. Qin Ming stood on the frozen sea cliff and looked down. One side was pitch black and deep, with extreme yin qi threatening to freeze one's very soul, a true abyss. On the other side, golden radiance surged like a tidal wave. A solitary plant bore a flower that blazed as brilliantly as the scorching sun itself. It was this flower that exuded the intoxicatingly rich fragrance permeating the air, a scent imbued with the very essence of true sun fire. This was truly extraordinary. In an extreme yin land, an extreme yang flower had actually been born. Most astonishing of all, at the boundary where extreme yin and extreme yang met, an open crystal coffin rested. Within it lay a woman, as ethereal as a slumbering heavenly immortal, enveloped in a faint, drifting mist. The divine flower bloomed beside the coffin, as if striving to help her reverse the cycle of yin and yang, life and death, and awaken once more. Qin Ming stared, utterly transfixed. Who was this woman? Her coffin hung suspended from the cliff face, poised at the very nexus of yin and yang, and was being nourished by the life force of an immortal, divine flower. At this moment, the dense fragrance seemed to permeate his very soul. Anyone in his place would have lost their composure, feeling as if they were drifting toward immortality. Qin Ming hurriedly wiped the drool from his chin, secretly relieved that Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran hadn't seen him lose himself so completely. At that moment, he felt an overwhelming urge to rush forward and pluck that longevity elixir. In truth, the two women were struggling to resist the temptation themselves, both were using their sleeves to discreetly cover their flushed lips. I think I just... Qin Ming glanced downward, only to realize it was no illusion. A single drop of his saliva had indeed fallen over the precipice, tracing a shimmering, crystalline arc through the air. Wait, don't. His expression changed. The shimmering drop had fallen straight into the coffin. In an instant, the woman's flawless face twitched, then, her long eyelashes began to flutter gently. Immediately thereafter, lightning flashed, and thunder roared across the entire world. The curtain of night shattered with a resounding crash, creating a scene of utter terror. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 482, Breaking Through the Major Bottleneck to Face the Enemy. 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Li Qingyu couldn't help but lose herself in the scene. The commotion was simply too immense. Thunder shattered the night veil, and even her long black hair was drawn upward by the scattering lightning arcs. What's happening? She asked. The pitch-black night sky erupted with a deafening roar. Thunderbolts as thick as buckets twisted the void, piercing the heavens, weaving together in a dense, unending barrage. The deafening sound was like a tsunami, or the stampede of 1,000 armies. It made the cliff seem ready to collapse, the frozen sea crackle and burst, and the night sky tear apart, transforming into a sea of thunder. Quick, let's go. Qin Ming sent a mental transmission, sensing grave danger. His voice was tight as he added in a muffled tone, this place is extremely dangerous. The blood bonding ritual failed. The situation is now dire. He swore he had no intention of performing such a ritual. After all, even Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran, two beauties as elegant and poised as fallen immortal maidens, were secretly covering their mouths with their sleeves. The demonic flower and the longevity elixir were two legendary things in the world that even earth immortals and divine beings couldn't resist. Their fragrance permeated the air, seeping directly into the very depths of one's soul. Further back, behind the main group, a crowd of onlookers was frantically swallowing their saliva, utterly unable to restrain themselves. Go. Qin Ming signaled to Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran. This place was truly no longer safe to stay in, it was a territory with a master. The most critical issue was that the moment he'd come face to face with the person in the coffin, he'd offended her to the death. A single, crystalline drop of light splashed onto her flawless, clear face. Her translucent white skin and even her eyelashes trembled slightly, a clear sign of revival, not death. The only saving grace was that the mysterious woman lay on her back in the crystal coffin, with the night sky above her woven with a dense waterfall of lightning. Zhang Ran's beautiful hair nearly stood on end as she exclaimed, a place of extreme yin transforming into extreme yang, reversing the cycle of life and death. Does that mean a longevity-granting elixir has sprouted down there? There is indeed a flower of extreme yang. But it is accompanied by a terrifying coffin, Qinming informed them with a grave expression. You dripped blood on an ancient coffin. Zhang Ran asked, glancing at the bloodstain on the corner of his mouth from his earlier injury. She strongly suspected that Qin Ming's dripping blood to claim ownership was a bit of an exaggeration. Li Qingyu, meanwhile, simply laughed. Don't tell me you were actually drooling. As she spoke, she raised her fair, slender hand. A rain of light descended, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth from a distance. As the two women exchanged faint smiles, they nearly let the truth slip out. Although they were conversing, they did not pause their steps. Trusting in Qin Ming completely, Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran did not hesitate for a moment. Moving with lightning speed, they followed him to make their immediate escape from the precipice. Qin Ming glanced back and breathed a slight sigh of relief. If that woman ever fully awakens, heaven knows what will happen. Just then, the pursuers arrived near the precipice. Upon seeing the lightning bolts intertwining ahead, forming a veritable abyss of thunder, they all felt their scalps tingle with awe and trepidation. What an incredibly rich medicinal fragrance. I'm practically itching to leap down there right now. In their eyes, this was a place of life from death, definitely not a demonic flower. There must be a longevity elixir below. However, seeing the three figures ahead retreat in alarm, they naturally grew cautious. They brought out their exotic treasures and used spiritual mirrors to observe the scenery at the bottom of the cliff. In an instant, many gasped in astonishment. A medicinal herb flowing with true sunfire, yet it hasn't been burned to ash. What level of flower of longevity is this? And look there, a crystal coffin. Inside lies a woman of peerless beauty and grace. Who on earth could she be? Immediately, their minds raced with speculation. Any being capable of such an arrangement in ancient times, leaving behind such a trump card, couldn't possibly be an ordinary person. She's either a legendary figure from history or the scion of a peerless heavenly immortal. To use the secret aperture of the sun to reverse the divide between yin and yang. Her background must be unimaginably vast. Some felt an overwhelming sense of dread deep within their hearts and couldn't help but recoil. Others, however, were swallowing hard. For example, decayed deities who had fallen to the Grandmaster level, there were more than just one or two of them. The divine light in their eyes flared intensely, showing no hint of reverence. Beings like them had degenerated severely, their lifespans nearing their end. If there were even the slightest chance of restoring their youth and rising again, they would dare to strike even if a supreme heavenly immortal slept here. After all, they were about to die. What was there to fear? Fellow Taoist, you must not act rashly. Even the yellow-haired old monster, who wielded a black spear and exuded a fierce aura, felt his scalp tingle. He saw the withered black-robed man beside him about to make a move. The black-robed man trembled slightly, and several black feathers fell from his body, turning to ash. He grinned and said, I am not greedy. Fishing for a single immortal petal is enough. Black light appeared in his hand, transforming into a silken thread that extended down the cliff. Fellow Taoist, consider this carefully. You cannot act so recklessly. The black-robed man, having grown indifferent to life and death, replied, time is running out. When a man is about to die, does he still care if the floodgates open? I will risk it all. A demon cultivator tried to stop him, saying, wait, fellow Taoist. Let us think of a plan together. We will surely find a better way. In that case, come and assist me, the decayed deity said with a faint smile. Instantly, many felt a tightness in their chests. This old bastard was on the verge of dissipating, yet he was threatening them with his death-defying desperation. How hateful. A group of the most cautious individuals, wiping the corners of their mouths, began to back away. They had no desire to go mad alongside a dying man, even if they intended to gather medicinal herbs, they required absolute certainty and safety. Qinming and his two companions crossed the night mist and arrived at the entrance to the frozen sea in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, they halted, sensing something amiss in the spiderweb-covered tunnel. There are people blocking the way over there, it's quite dangerous. All three of them possessed keen divine senses and immediately detected the situation. They quietly retreated, distancing themselves from the area. Exploration teams from other top civilizations were guarding the spot, and it seemed there was more than one team, preparing to join forces and ambush anyone who appeared. Damn it. Some of these major organizations are too cowardly to venture into dangerous lands themselves, yet they love to reap rewards without effort, Qinming muttered. Qinming, Li Qingyu, and Zhang Ran all wore grim expressions. Their artifact spirits warned them that if they tried to force their way through, they would likely face a desperate battle for survival. "We'll wait for the right moment," Zhang Ran said, her voice steady. "We'll recover and adjust to our peak condition in the shadows." She was an expert in large-scale battles and breaking through enemy encirclements. Years ago, during the Great Battle of Black-White Mountain, she had snatched the greatest fortune from the clutches of a group of old demons and city lord-level figures. Li Qingyu nodded in agreement. Back at the Luofu Immortal Mountain ruins, she had been besieged by all her rivals, yet she was the one who emerged victorious in the end. Now that her innate fire physique had reached full mastery, her capabilities were on an entirely different level, simply incomparable to her past self. "I'll start my secluded cultivation right away." Qinming hoped to refine the true sunfire as quickly as possible and elevate the Golden Crow Night illuminating scripture to the perfected domain. In the blink of an eye, they vanished into the night, the three of them hiding deep within the ice layers of the frozen sea. Li Qingyu spoke, "If you're going to temper your true fire, you might as well enter the 8 trigrams furnace for your secluded cultivation." You're right." Qinming's face lit up with joy. In the true fire domain, having such a ready-made treasure site to aid him would naturally make his efforts twice as effective and help him break through his cultivation bottleneck quickly. With a clang, Li Qingyu shed her armor. The damaged furnace body floated in the air, appearing quite plain yet exuding an ancient, weathered aura, covered in various mysterious patterns. Dressed in white, Li Qingyu stood before the legendary immortal furnace, giving off an otherworldly, transcendent feel, elegant, ethereal, like a heavenly immortal descending from the heavens. The battle armor Qinming wore, formed from the furnace lid, also fell away. He then handed the yellow canopy umbrella and the decaying fan to Li Qingyu, letting her use them for self-defense for the time being. The two women were greatly shocked after learning the origin of the decaying fan. "This is the ancient artifact rumored to be from the Tushita Palace." Zhang Ran teased, "We'll wave this fan to fan the flames for you. Maybe we can help you forge a golden body. You're just trying to refine me into a great medicine and eat me, aren't you? Speaking of which, we've collected more than half of the charred lotus seeds from the golden lotus in flames. These are extraordinary items, physical body cultivation treasure medicines. It's the perfect time to digest and absorb them here to see the effects." The two women handed Qinming some of the charred, flaking seeds. Their cooperation during the harvest had been seamless. Qinming then took out the emerald green tree heart and invited them to examine it with him. They determined that it was not some miraculous medicinal herb, but rather a rare and precious material for crafting artifacts, one containing mysterious Taoist patterns within. If one cultivates a wood attribute technique, such as the sustaining world scripture, holding this object might aid in the realization of the Tao. Qinming lent the item to them for study before stepping into the furnace himself. Instantly, deep beneath the frozen sea, within the depths of the ice sheet, the furnace fire ignited. Qinming shed his garments, sat cross-legged inside the now enlarged treasure furnace, and officially commenced his secluded cultivation. Before long, the phantom image of a golden crow projected from within the furnace. Golden radiance erupted as the divine bird soared, eventually transforming into a great sun. As Qinming inhaled, the morning glow enveloped him, filling him with fresh, vibrant vitality. As he exhaled, the evening glow radiated outward, casting the crimson light of a setting sun. Eventually, he reached his zenith, like the sun at high noon, sitting cross-legged within a solar disk of blinding brilliance. He appeared as a heavenly god reawakening from a deep slumber, emerging from the depths of antiquity into the present world. The Golden Crow Night illuminating scripture was profoundly mysterious, for it could be cultivated by anyone, regardless of their chosen path. Those on the immortal path who studied it could purify their consciousness into pure yang, making it ever more intense and continuously sublimating it. However, this scripture was exceedingly difficult to master, few could ever truly walk its path. For those on the path of awakening, its significance was even more extraordinary. It could make one's heavenly light as fierce as the blazing sun, a pinnacle many aspired to reach. The Golden Crow Night illuminating scripture amplified this transformation. It could purify heavenly light, intensifying it to the point of qualitative change. If one were to master the entire scripture, it would make their heavenly light, pure yang consciousness, and divine wisdom even more domineering. Who wouldn't crave such an extraordinary enhancement? For this reason, those on the immortal path had once kept it hidden, never passing it on to others. Qinming had earned it after fighting demons in the western border battlefield and achieving great merit. He had acquired the only remaining half-volume of the fragmented scripture, then resonated with it to deduce the complete scripture. As he went through the motions of his cultivation, 2 golden imprints flew out from the furnace and embedded themselves into the foreheads of the 2 women. Qinming had transmitted the entire scripture to them. As time passed, the true sunfire was refined, giving birth to a dense spiritual essence. It became the source fire, which would never again be extinguished, perfectly harmonizing with the golden crow night illuminating scripture. Within Qin Ming's body, waves of golden magma flowed, as if pioneering new lands, dispelling the black mist that filled his internal world. His flesh and blood had become a furnace shimmering with immortal light, harboring a true spirit. Clearly, Qin Ming's cultivation had borne fruit. He had completely mastered the scriptures of the fourth realm, and for now, there was no need to delve into the scriptural meaning of higher realms. His heavenly light grew even more intense, and the various killing techniques of this scripture began to manifest. Within the 8 trigrams furnace, 9 golden crows soared, transforming into blinding blades of light. Trailing behind them appeared a materialized golden blade, a divine weapon of pure fire, casting its brilliant glow upon all things. For a moment, the blazing sun, the golden crows, and the flashing blades of light within the furnace intertwined in a chaotic dance, enveloping the cross-legged Qin Ming and rendering his presence even more sacred and transcendent. Qin Ming then proceeded to manifest his own, true Samadhi fire, fusing true sunfire, 6-ding divine fire, and Nanming Li fire. Instantly, 3 colored flames flickered, a spectacle of truly terrifying intensity. Clearly, this iteration of the true Samadhi fire was far more formidable than its standard counterpart. He carefully inspected his inner self, channeling the 3 colored flames into his heart lamp to empower its flame. The heart lamp's light instantly became brilliant, illuminating his entire body. This was nourishment, but also a searing immolation. Even Qin Ming's formidable physical body recoiled in pain, enduring a sensation of intense agony. The 6-ding divine fire was a gentle fire, capable of spirit refinement and nourishing the body. But the true sunfire was different, it was incredibly tyrannical. How could an ordinary person possibly withstand it? Qin Ming could withstand it, after all, having mastered the golden crow night illuminating scripture. Yet he still felt a burning pain as flames erupted from his pores, and his skin grew dry and scorched. Perfect. I'll use this place to test my physical body cultivation. He rubbed off the charred outer shell of the lotus seed, revealing a core of crimson gold, then popped it into his mouth like a piece of candy. This was the seed of the golden lotus in flames, a physical body cultivation treasure medicine. Had it not lost over 80% of its spiritual essence to the fire, it would have been far more precious than it was now. Even so, it still possessed extraordinary effects. Qin Ming's flesh and blood glowed with precious light. His skin ceased to wither, and the vitality of his body surged. His body refinement and Tao unification scripture began to circulate of its own accord, followed by the activation of the ultimate golden body. Finally, he returned to the golden crow night illuminating scripture. In that moment, every aspect of Qin Ming, his integrated heavenly light, his pure yang consciousness, and his physical body, experienced a profound elevation. Let's add some wind. Wind fuels fire. With the wind scripture complementing the divine fire, he could also nourish himself from within. Qin Ming's entire body radiated a halo, forming a hazy glow as his body and spirit resonated in harmony. He was not only succeeding in his cultivation but also breaking through his cultivation realm. His flesh and spirit were being reborn. This transformation was both fierce and swift. He ascended from the 2nd heaven of the heart lamp to the 3rd heaven, and then immediately broke through to the 4th heaven. This massive leap propelled him directly into the middle stage of the heart lamp realm. Qin Ming's heart swelled with joy. At this level, he could now charge forward with his sword against even a saint from a top civilization without flinching. His own cultivation had finally caught up. Even if his opponent stood at the late stage of the 4th realm, he could now face them in a duel without needing to flee in disarray. Thinking of those who had previously besieged and hunted him, he murmured to himself, "Many of you should be the ones turning tail and running now." Qin Ming gave a gentle shake, his body remaining utterly free of dust or blemish. A radiant glow of spiritual energy flowed across his lithe and well-proportioned physique. He donned his clothes and formally emerged from his secluded cultivation. You succeeded. Yes. Having consumed the golden lotuses of fire, Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran had also achieved great success in their physical body cultivation. Over the past 6 months, they had made significant gains in the remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain, breaking through their own bottlenecks and deepening their cultivation. It is time to strike back. Let the hunt begin. Debts of vengeance must be repaid. The 3 of them had once been hunted by the 7 great organizations. Now, having rested and grown stronger, they began to sharpen their blades, eager for the coming conflict. Whether it was the demonic flower or the longevity herb, both possessed an allure that was simply irresistible. After careful deliberation, the group finally made its move. They retreated to a safe distance, cautiously controlling their puppets and indirectly activating the exotic treasures, all in an attempt to harvest the immortal extreme yang medicine. Boom! From the depths of the abyss below, towering flames erupted. The so-called puppets and mystical artifacts they had deployed were instantly shattered into fragments. The scene below was one of sheer terror. Chains of divine laws intertwined, true sun fires surged upward, and bolts of thunder crackled, bridging the heavens and the earth. Who's controlling the puppet? Do you want to die? A Grand Master roared in fury. We failed to hook the longevity elixir and hit the coffin instead. The decaying god spoke. It wasn't a mistake. That woman might have awakened. She's using her hazy consciousness to interfere and stop us from plucking the flower of immortality. In that case, since she cannot physically emerge, meaning the critical moment of her reversal of yin and yang, life and death, is likely still underway, do we still have a chance? Another degenerated deity asked. Don't be reckless. If we provoke her, we'll all be wiped out. Oleg of the Black Tower civilization interjected. He was still young, with his whole life ahead of him, and had no desire to go mad with a bunch of decaying beings. Quick, let's go. The moon goddess and blood god whispered, urging their followers to retreat. They couldn't risk their lives any longer for the sake of those old fools with only a few years left to live. I'll take a look. The decaying god, still refusing to give up, unleashed a treasure mirror. He brought it to the edge of the abyss to reflect the scene below. Within the crystal coffin, the woman lay serenely, enveloped in swirling white mist. The extreme yang divine medicine continuously rained down light upon her. Her eyelids trembled faintly, as if she were about to open them at any moment. As her consciousness began to stir, she sensed an anomaly beside her cheek, the aura of a man. It was so intense that it threatened to ignite her entire body with true fire. A storm raged within her heart, shattering her inner peace. She had sought life through death, but at this critical juncture, an outsider had intruded. This was a disastrous turn of events. But now, I can protect myself. Although she remained physically unable to leave the coffin, she was certainly capable of exerting her power to intimidate, and, if necessary, to strike back with decisive force. In an instant, from the depths of the extreme yin land at the bottom of the abyss, an extreme yang aura surged upward. Terrifying true sunfire erupted, raining down upon the intruders. The source of fire had gained sentience, giving birth to several phantom creatures. Damn it, run. On the frozen sea, the group's expressions shifted abruptly. A sky-blotting swarm of phantasmal figures erupted from the depths, each wreathed in true sunfire, relentlessly hunting them down. Thunder tore through the night veil, striking toward their position. Many trembled in terror. Had they not retreated far enough, the mere shockwaves of the lightning would have shattered them. It was clear that the woman from the abyss could not fully escape her prison. She couldn't unleash her full power or manifest the source of destruction. Only a sliver of her consciousness had awakened, allowing her to influence this realm, imbuing the phantasmal creatures with spiritual essence and moderately boosting their cultivation. Some of these phantoms are grandmasters. Someone muttered, the strength of these creatures depends entirely on the woman from the abyss. She believes grandmasters are enough to deal with us. If she were willing to expend her own essence, she could probably create sixth realm experts, or even stronger. But I doubt she'd pay such a steep price. The group fled in desperation, terrified that she might eventually retaliate without regard for the cost. On the frozen sea, true sunfire raged, spreading relentlessly. Along the way, several young disciples met gruesome ends, tackled by the phantasmal creatures and incinerated to ash. Finally, the group reached the exit, only to be ambushed in the tunnel by an unknown force. Are you all mad? The great calamity is upon us, and you'd still try to plunder this place. The tunnel became a chaotic melee, the air thick with the pungent scent of blood. Let's go. We should use this chaos to break out and get our revenge while we're at it, Qinming said as he and his two companions appeared beside the tunnel, ready to make their escape. At the edge of the frozen sea, the woman in the crystal coffin had manifested a vague, tangible form from her will. She hung in the night sky above the abyss, gazing forward. She actually came out. Qinming's heart hammered against his ribs. He suspected she might be a heavenly immortal who had reversed life and death, and the thought sent a chill down his spine. You mentioned the blood drop recognition ritual, Zhang Ran asked, glancing sideways. Could the blood have accidentally dripped onto her? Don't say anything reckless, Qinming quickly stopped her. She's looking at you, Li Qingyu's voice echoed in his mind. Under the night veil, the woman, though still a phantom, was breathtakingly beautiful. Her newly awakened will was still hazy and confused, yet she had already sensed the young man in the distance, the one whose aura had disturbed her eternal slumber. At that moment, her hazy, jade-like face nearly turned completely black. Qinming charged into the crowd. If he didn't act now, it would be too late. Facing the experts from the 7 great organizations, Qinming, Li Qingyu, and Zhang Ran showed no mercy. With a single strike, they tore through the ranks, leaving a massive mist of blood in their wake. It's you. Someone recognized them. As sworn enemies, there was no need for words. They clashed immediately in a bloody melee. You. The blood god was stunned. Meeting Qin Ming again, he was instantly struck down, losing an arm in the first exchange. He was forced to use blood escape to flee. We only parted ways a short while ago. How did he suddenly become so much stronger? Ah. The moon goddess was engulfed in flames by Li Qingyu and then struck by Zhang Ran's finger technique. Covered in blood and fire, she stumbled away in retreat. Puff. A dazzling sword light slashed through her. Beside Qin Ming, 9 golden crows soared into the air. This was his trump card, the golden crow raising sword stance. The attack severed the moon goddess's shoulder diagonally. It had to be admitted, this woman was incredibly powerful. Even after such a lethal blow, she managed to reconstruct her body using a secret technique. However, the lingering sword intent of Qin Ming trembled, once again tearing through her body. The moon goddess cried out, her face filled with terror. She decisively abandoned her physical body, her consciousness projecting outward to flee toward the blood god. Boom. Her exquisite body exploded, shattered by the sword intent. The main issue was that the area was too crowded. Although the 7 great organizations had many members, it was difficult for them to encircle Qin Ming's trio within the tunnel. As a result, they couldn't leverage their numerical advantage and suffered a crushing defeat right from the start. Oh no. Is that a supreme heavenly immortal? The woman from the abyss is transforming. Lightning flashes and thunder roars beneath the night veil, she seems truly enraged, and her divine might is even more overwhelming than before. Behind them, those who hadn't yet entered the tunnel panicked, urging the people in front to flee immediately or face impending doom. Even Qin Ming's trio dared not waste any time, charging forward desperately for fear of being left behind. Soon, they encountered an expert from the strange insect alliance, the silver-spotted ladybug. 5 months ago, this strange insect had broken through to the late stage of the 4th realm in the remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain. Its strength was formidable, but now, in the clash with its opponent, its body, as hard as divine gold, cracked. Qin Ming swung his sword repeatedly. With a loud bang, the terrifying sword intent and brilliant golden radiance engulfed the area ahead, obliterating the silver-spotted ladybug. There's no time to waste. Qin Ming realized the aftereffects of the blood bond had begun. The woman's initial awakening alone had already caused such immense fury. Ahead, the organizations blocking the tunnel to plunder also sensed something was wrong. They dared not continue their hunt and turned to flee. Just like that, the dense crowd began a full-scale retreat. Qin Ming and his group struck occasionally, obliterating any opponents who dared to approach. The organizations that had previously besieged him were utterly terrified, deeply unsettled by his surging strength. Elena, Oleg, I've come to settle the score with you. Qin Ming spotted the members of the Black Tower civilization. Stop fighting. A Grandmaster-level phantom creature is riding the flames and charging from behind. Many people panicked. After bursting out of the secret aperture of the sun, they fled in a desperate scramble. Before long, the entire mountain range was plunged into chaos. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 483, Jingji Pai looks down upon all enemies, 2 chapters combined, 5,537 words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The night was pitch black. The remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain were ablaze with fire, and the clamor of battle shook the very heavens. Chaos in the mountains, wolves fleeing and swine stampeding. Qin Ming watched the widespread flight and slaughter across the mountain, his eyelids twitching. All around, blades and swords clashed in a flurry of light, leaving behind a shocking spray of blood. Li Qingyu stood bathed in divine fire, her black hair fluttering. With her bright eyes and white teeth, she remained elegantly otherworldly even amidst the chaotic army, as a banished immortal descended to the mortal realm. She reminded him, we are fleeing, too. Zhang Ran, her graceful figure clad in armor, swung her heavenly halberd and sliced a sneak-attacking demon cultivator in half at the waist. As a mystic maiden descended to earth, she also spoke, you've just insulted us as well. Qin Ming corrected himself, we are different. Our retreat is like a crane dancing among the pines, or clouds unfurling from a sleeve, a calm and unhurried withdrawal. Behind them, within the secret aperture of the sun, the fire surged like a tide, rapidly expanding outward. Many phantom creatures, born of the flames, relentlessly pursued them. Qin Ming had just successfully broken through to the mid-stage 4th realm. This was the moment when his resolve was strongest and his spirit most emboldened, yet he had been caught in this sudden and unforeseen upheaval. Moon Goddess, Blood God, how could you end up like this? Ahead, a black-robed youth saw the armless Blood God and the Moon Goddess, whose body had been destroyed, leaving only her pure yang consciousness. He gasped and glided toward them like a ghost. The black-robed man was the core figure of the demigod expedition team, the Night God. It was one sword, a saint of the Jade Capital. He severely wounded us, the Blood God said. Half of his body was covered in blood, his right arm severed, and his face was deathly pale. If not for the blood escape technique, he would have died. Night God, you must help me get revenge, the moon goddess said, on the verge of tears. She had lost her physical body, and without rare heavenly materials and earthly treasures to reshape it, she would struggle to survive in this world. The night god comforted her, saying, "Don't be anxious. There are some special constitutions in this world that are perfect for becoming the new body of a pure yang consciousness. I will definitely find the one that suits you best." He was the strongest member of this team. Instead of entering the secret aperture of the sun, he had stayed outside to provide support. At this moment, the night god's black robes fluttered in the wind. His eyes, deep as an abyss, scanned the surroundings as he declared, "Where is one sword? Even if he is a saint of the highest land, he cannot suppress our divine-like organization." This organization was mysterious and powerful. Its upper echelons consisted of high gods from the night mist world, whose influence spread across all lands, unfathomable and vast. It also had another name, the Pseudo-God Association. Even in the distant night prefecture, its traces could be found. For instance, the three-eyed sect that Qin Ming had encountered on Black White Mountain long ago originated from a powerful divine being within the otherworldly Pseudo-God Association. In truth, this was no time for an all-out brawl. Night God had only mentioned seeking one sword in passing, primarily to soothe the two beside him. However, Blood God was far too straightforward. He immediately pointed out the target, there. Worst of all, Qin Ming was already close by, charging toward them. Night God frowned. The battlefield was a sea of blood and fire, he couldn't afford to waste time. But Blood God had already issued a challenge, shouting across the field. "One sword, get your ass over here." Night God. Qin Ming looked up, spotted them, and charged with his sword. His confidence was soaring after his recent breakthrough, and he was eager to test his sword against new opponents. If he happened to encounter a suitable whetstone on his way, he wouldn't mind taking the opportunity to sharpen his blade. Night God, Moon Goddess said, her eyes glistening with tears. She looked utterly pitiful. She truly loathed one sword and desperately hoped the powerful Night God would avenge her. Now, the two sides were facing each other head-on. Even if Night God didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble, he had no choice but to step up. He'd been backed into a corner. If he retreated without fighting, word would reach the demigod organization. His prestige, reputation, and evaluations would all take a hit, potentially jeopardizing his future prospects for a higher godhood. "What realm is he in?" Night God asked. Blood God immediately replied, "I overheard the two women beside him talking. He should be in the mid-stage 4th realm. Since we've run into him. I'll go kill him." Night God said in a low voice. Though this place was in utter chaos, he was moving against the crowd, heading straight for one sword. He didn't care at all whether the man was a saint of the Jade Capital. The Pseudo-God Association wasn't intimidated by those top civilizations. Night God was in the late stage of the 4th realm, possessing powerful conviction and confidence. He saw Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran and showed a strange expression. Both of these women are so elegant and otherworldly, with such extraordinary divine charm. "Moon Goddess, which one have you set your sights on? I'll help you seize her body for your new form." "They are both very strong," Moon God warned, telling him absolutely not to let his guard down. "What did you say?" Qin Ming's sword-like eyebrows shot up. This man in black dared to say such words in his presence, threatening to harm the two women. He must be tired of living. As if someone like you is worthy. Zhang Ran retorted even more sharply, preparing to make her own move and duel Night God. Though she was a woman, she possessed a transcendent and peerless aura. Although Li Qingyu said nothing, the divine fire surrounding her body grew visibly more brilliant, like a divine lotus in flames, swaying with otherworldly immortal light. Night God approached, his gaze sweeping over the two women. The more he looked, the more he felt they were otherworldly. Both their aura and their peerless beauty surpassed even the moon goddesses, leaving him momentarily dazed. "Ladies, would you care to join the Pseudo-God Association?" He smiled, his previous cold demeanor completely gone. "Hair God Society, come and meet your deaths," Qin Ming declared. The man in black was being far too arrogant. To say such things in his presence, did he really think Qin Ming didn't exist? Night God's voice turned grave. "Fine. Today, I'll show you that there's always someone stronger, and that even the Jade Capital, powerful as it is, cannot reach us in the Pseudo-God Association." The moment they met, they clashed. The surrounding flames seemed to extinguish instantly. Darkness enveloped Qin Ming, leaving not a single sliver of light. This was Night God's technique, his domain of absolute darkness. Like a hunter in the abyss, he merged with the shadows, baring his ferocious fangs as he launched his attack. In an instant, the air rang with the constant clash of swords, and energy surged violently. Qin like a golden crow tearing through the darkness, seemed to collapse the very void around him. Night God retreated, his face etched with shock. Blood stained his ear, and a lock of hair fell to the ground. Half of his left ear had been severed, blown away by the impact of a sword light. Qin expression turned grim. They had exchanged over 50 blows in that brief clash. This man was undoubtedly one of the strongest opponents he had ever faced. Night God was a seed candidate carefully cultivated by the Pseudo-God Association, a prodigy selected from countless others with the potential to ascend to a higher godhood. With a swish, his figure faded, and darkness once again enveloped the area. Qin felt as if he had been locked inside a pitch-black box, completely isolated from the outside world. However, as his heart lamp ignited, illuminating heaven and earth, the so-called dark domain was dispelled. In that same instant, Qin struck with the golden crow sword-bearing stance, carving a deep wound into Night God's chest. The sword sliced through bone, tearing flesh open to reveal the beating heart within. Night God stumbled back, his expression grave. Even though they were both in the fourth realm, he was at least 3 or 4 minor realms stronger than his opponent. Yet, he was the one on the defensive. What kind of terrifying opponent is this? He thought. Since his ascension, he had never been bested by someone of a lower cultivation level. Today, he finally tasted this bitter defeat. In a flash, he struck again. Pure yang blade light erupted in the mountains. He no longer unleashed the dark domain, but instead, like a phoenix reborn from nirvana, he bloomed from the abyss as the world's most brilliant light. He rode his blade, man and blade as one, streaking across the night sky. He charged at his opponent dozens of times, their fierce clashes tearing through the heavens like lightning, swift, terrifying, and enough to drive any top expert of the fourth realm to despair. Yet the youth in the arena remained utterly composed, his sword strikes relentless. Each one soared like a scorching sun, transforming him into a terrifying divine demon. Behind them, the moon goddess's pure yang consciousness recoiled, her mind trembling in disbelief. How could the night god, with his superior cultivation, be forced onto the defensive? You think you can leave? Li Qingyu's voice cut through the air. Zhang Ran glided forward with graceful poise, a mocking smile on her lips. Your name is a taboo here. The true moon goddess is present. As for the blood god, who had already lost an arm, he had seized the moment when the night god's dark domain engulfed Qin. In the split second the two young powerhouses clashed, he had once again activated his blood escape technique and vanished. The moon goddess, ever cautious, had also tried to retreat. But the psychic secret technique unleashed by the two women had eroded her in the blink of an eye, momentarily paralyzing her body. Without a physical form, her consciousness' spiritual light was like rootless duckweed, lacking the flesh and blood soil to nourish and protect her. This made her far more vulnerable to such attacks. Clang. After hundreds of clashes and sword strikes, the night god had swung between absolute darkness and blinding radiance. Finally, his pure yang blade light shattered. His body, now drenched in blood, nearly snapped in two as he plummeted from the sky. At the critical moment, he activated his divine weapon, enveloping himself in liquid armor and narrowly escaping being severed in half. Qin 8 trigrams battle armor also surged to life, activating in turn. Now it was his turn to wield his sword, charging toward his opponent with overwhelming force. Amidst the clashing sounds, Night God's face turned deathly pale. In this kind of duel, activating a special weapon consumed far too much energy. Crucially, Zhang Ran's 9-colored immortal light shot into the sky, and Li Qingyu's 8 trigrams runes shone brilliantly. The two soared into the air, unleashing a powerful aura to cut off his escape route. Bang! As Qin swung his sword, Night God's physical body inside the special armor was nearly blasted apart. At the same time, the black armor outside Night God's body erupted with black light, detached itself, and transformed into a dagger that pierced through the night sky and flew far away. Qin exerted every effort to stop it, channeling the power of his 8 trigrams battle armor to assist in the interception. Zhang Ran and Li Qingyu also pursued and tried to intercept it. However, the black dagger possessed a spiritual sentient, as if housing a complete artifact spirit within. It vanished in a flash, as if plunged into the abyss, never to be seen again. That was a weapon refined by a powerful divine being. It is better to let it go, otherwise, that demigod creature might follow its trail and come knocking on our door, the artifact spirit of the 8 trigrams furnace informed. If this old one weren't shattered, I would have crushed it directly. The artifact spirit's 6 desires within the heavenly halberd sent out a wave of emotion. In fact, if the damaged 8 trigrams furnace hadn't been reduced to just the artifact spirit's remnant rhythm, it could have burned a divine demon to death instantly. Why? Night God asked. Having been blasted into a mass of bloody pulp by Qin Ming's sword, his pure yang consciousness already dimming, he knew he had fallen into a desperate predicament from which he would not survive. After all, even his divine weapon had abandoned him. Because your cultivation realm is too low, Qin Ming replied. Night God's consciousness spiritual light flared violently, clearly agitated. The opponent was only at the mid-stage 4th realm, yet he spoke such words. Qin Ming said, if you were at the peak 4th realm or a grandmaster, you wouldn't have ended up so miserably. You. Night God felt a lump in his throat, feeling mocked and humiliated. Bang. Qin Ming swung his sword, slashing the blob of bloody pulp apart. A black hurricane swept through, and combined with the golden crow knight illuminating sword, it completely extinguished the opponent's essence chi and spirit. Night God. Moon Goddess's consciousness spiritual light trembled, her face pale. She was completely immobilized here, unable to escape her fate. She regretted it now, she had already fled, so why return for revenge? This was truly walking into a trap. Why leave her alive? Qin Ming charged forward, his sword piercing through her pure yang consciousness. Simultaneously, his sword intent vibrated continuously, combined with the black gale. No. In despair, Moon Goddess's pure yang consciousness was completely extinguished. After breaking through, I've truly become powerful. I can barely be considered a realm-based expert now. Qin Ming pondered. My cultivation realm should be no lower than Kui Chonghei's now, right? What are you staring at? Hurry up. The two women urged. A moment later, they encountered an expert from the strange insect alliance amidst the chaotic army. Young master, it was this man who killed the silver-spotted ladybug. A red jade spider spoke. If it hadn't run fast enough, it would have died in that tunnel as well. A young expert, as fair as jade and clad in snow-white robes, looked over at Qin Ming. His clothes were stained with blood from the chaotic battle, but they couldn't hide his refined, scholarly aura. The exotic insect alliance was powerful. Some of its members had entered the frozen sea, while others had transformed into raiders and blocked the tunnel exit. It's better to resolve grudges than to let them fester, the white-robed man said. Although he hadn't witnessed Qin Ming kill the night god with his own eyes, he had guessed what had happened from the sky-piercing sword light. Consequently, he had chosen to exercise restraint, making a dash for the world beyond the mountain. Qin Ming, Zhang Ran, and Li Qingyu all had keen divine senses. They vaguely sensed the murderous intent the man was forcibly suppressing. Qin Ming, in particular, could resonate with it and clearly capture the opponent's malice. The strange insect alliance had a grandmaster who had already escaped the mountains. This white-robed youth wanted to wait until they were out before taking revenge. Qin Ming uttered not a single word, instead, he charged straight toward his foe, intent on the kill. Are you actively seeking a feud with my exotic insect alliance? The white-robed youth roared, trying to create distance. Do you truly wish for a blood feud that ends only in death? However, once Qin Ming had locked onto his target, he remained utterly silent, doing nothing but relentlessly unleashing strike after strike with his sword. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? The white-robed youth charged barehanded, striking Qin Ming's long sword, condensed from heavenly light, with incomparable ferocity. Yet, in mere moments, blood began to gush from his hands, his flesh was torn open and mangled, the bone beneath nearly laid bare. The man was, indeed, a formidable powerhouse, otherwise, the younger generation within this entire contingent would never have chosen him as their leader. In an instant, he transformed into his true form, a flying centipede as white as jade. He let out a low growl, spewing forth a toxic mist capable of corroding the very fabric of the spiritual realm. He possessed hundreds of arms, each as pristine as white jade, some formed mystical hand seals, others manifested blades of pure yang energy, while still others wielded massive hammers of thunder, all striking out in a frenzied attack. If we're going to fight, let's fight to the death. The white-robed youth, now a centipede with a human head, white hair fluttering, arms waving like a demon god descended to earth. However, amidst the fierce clash, he failed to gain the upper hand. Qin Ming's spiritual domain expanded, a terrifying fusion of the Sumeru domain, heavenly demon force domain, and other powers. It distorted the night sky, sending ripples cascading in layer upon layer. Ah! The strange insect centipede spirit's arms were torn off one by the spiritual domain. Even with its 100 arms, it was no match. Its body shrank rapidly, becoming no longer than a palm. It fully transformed into the white jade centipede, radiating a divine glow, crystal clear and translucent, as it shot toward Qin Ming. In this moment, it seemed forged from divine gold, indestructible. When a sword light from Qin Ming struck it, a metallic clang echoed. The sword left a white mark on its body but failed to slice completely through. Clang! In an instant, the long sword in Qin Ming's hand was wreathed in flames. The Nanming Li Fire, Six Ding Divine Fire, and True Sunfire merged into one as he unleashed the Samadhi True Fire Sword. Puff. With a single stroke, he sliced the strange centipede in two. It was as effortless as a hot knife cutting through butter, the severed edges were perfectly smooth, and only moments later did blood begin to gush from the wound. The white jade centipede let out a piercing, wretched shriek, its 100 legs writhed frantically, and a pair of wings sprouted from its flanks, it was attempting to flee. However, with a single stroke of his sword, Qinming slashed it back down, cutting off its escape route. He knew that the Samadhi True Fire Sword, much like the longevity sword intent not recorded in the sustaining world scripture, was a trump card in a single domain. I was destined to become the insect king, how could I be so pathetic? The white jade centipede, a late stage of the fourth realm cultivator, was filled with a sense of defeat. Your cultivation realm is simply too low, Qinming replied. The white jade centipede was indignant, mocked even at the moment of death. Yet it was an undeniable fact that the opponent could slay him despite being in a lower realm. He was filled with powerlessness. His dream of becoming the insect king was shattered, and he was now devoid of any chance to become one of the insect race's strongest experts. In the next instant, Qinming struck vertically, splitting the white jade centipede in half. He then unleashed the Samadhi True Fire, incinerating its consciousness spiritual light into ash. Meanwhile, Zhongran and Li Qingyu had already ended their battles, slaying the red jade spider and the flying scorpion. Li Qingyu remarked, the Grandmaster-level phantom creatures from the secret aperture of the sun seem to have weakened after emerging. It appears they cannot stray far from the land of extreme yang. Didn't they say there were great Grandmaster phantoms? I haven't seen any, Qinming asked, still gripping the decaying fan in a defensive posture. Zhang Ran said, the Grandmaster-level phantom has gone to hunt down the decayed deity. As it turned out, the decayed deity, whose lifespan was nearing its end, had been the most eager to fish for the extreme yang flower. Qinming's heart pounded wildly. The woman in the coffin was so vengeful, if she locked onto him, wouldn't the consequences be even more severe? In fact, deep within the secret aperture of the sun, the peerless phantom in the night sky touched her own face. Then, she spread her slender hand, aimed it at the physical body in the coffin, and restrained a wisp of its chi mechanism. With a wave of her hand, several powerful phantom creatures wreathed in true sunfire surged out of the abyss, crossed the frozen sea, and pursued it. On this day, throughout the remnants of the flying immortal mountain range, crimson mists billowed from fissures in the earth, even the demonic beasts were in an uproar, as if the entire ancient ruin had spiraled out of control. Disaster has struck. Flee, this mountain range is no longer safe. All the exploration teams fled from various mountain areas, scrambling to escape in a chaotic frenzy. In the distance, a golden-haired youth looked over. Yi Jian, so you, too, have fled to this place. It was none other than Oleg of the Black Tower civilization, accompanied by the Saintess Elena. As they were on the verge of breaking free from the flying immortal mountain range, their gazes locked with Qinming's across the distance. He is a core saint of the Jade Capital. Can we take him down? Behind Oleg and Elena, a group of people turned their heads to look back. Yi Jian. Come, let us finish the battle left unfinished high above in the 9 heavens. Oleg shouted. There is no avoiding it, we must cut our way through. Zhang Ran declared. Graceful and poised, with an ethereal beauty that transcended the mundane world, she displayed a steely resolve in this critical moment. Qinming nodded. Indeed. At this point, they are the ones who should be avoiding us, we have no reason to fear them. Li Qingyu's body erupted with boiling divine fire, declaring war on their opponents with her actions alone. In an instant, the two sides charged at each other. Oleg, having reached the late stage of the fourth realm, was indeed terrifyingly powerful, his long golden hair whipped about him like dancing divine flames. He dared to clash head-on with Qinming, directly continuing their past rivalry over the new ranking. A blinding golden radiance erupted from Oleg's flesh and blood, as if a sun were rising anew. Immediately after, a vast number of mysterious symbols branded the void and expanded outward. Qinming was equally dazzling, like a great sun across the sky. With every gesture, his sword chi surged, and a brilliant white sword light exploded, sweeping toward his opponent. In an instant, they moved like two divine demons, locked in a continuous clash. His cultivation realm is lower than mine, yet I failed to take him down immediately. Oleg's mind reeled. For a proud man like him, facing someone at a lower realm had always been a crushing victory. But today, this opponent was fighting him to a standstill, seemingly no weaker than he was. Your cultivation realm isn't high enough, Qinming declared with a deadpan expression. To a saint of the Black Tower civilization, such words carried a level of mockery that was absolutely off the charts. Oleg's expression turned grim. The runes embedded within his flesh grew even denser, extending beyond the surface of his skin, they began to intertwine before him, weaving themselves into the form of a golden tower. The tower was imposing, its form strikingly similar to the black tower that had carried them to the Jade Capital's territory, but this one was golden. The resplendent golden tower, radiating an immortal power and surrounded by phantoms of stars and constellations, surged forward with terrifying force. Qinming's expression turned grave as he unleashed his inner vision heaven-opening axe. In an instant, the axe's light seemed to rend eternity itself, tearing through the night veil and crashing into the brilliant golden tower. Waves of air churned as nearby cliffs collapsed. Blinding beams of energy poured everywhere, and the sky itself seemed to be splitting apart. This collision's destructive power was staggering. On the ground below, massive black fissures, several feet wide, crisscrossed in a chaotic web, stretching all the way to the foot of the distant mountain ridges. As for the cliffs immediately in front of them, they had been utterly pulverized, razed completely to the ground. Oleg panted heavily, blood trickling from the corners of his mouth. He was gravely wounded, yet he paid no heed to his own condition. Instead, his gaze darted anxiously toward his opponent. Though Qinming appeared disheveled, his black hair a tangled mess, his body remained unscathed, he bore no bleeding wounds. At that same moment, he unleashed his nine-colored sword qi. His primordial chaos force surged, and his spiritual domain expanded as he charged forward. With a resounding bang, the collision sent Oleg stumbling backward, coughing up a large mouthful of blood. His injuries had worsened severely, he felt sword qi slashing through his body, tearing at his five viscera. So strong, Qinming was inwardly alarmed. This man was truly formidable, having withstood his most powerful techniques. He was a cut above the night god and the white jade centipede. You. Oleg muttered in an unfamiliar language, his expression a mix of agitation and fury. He had clearly been provoked and was cursing in his native tongue. Come again. Qinming challenged. Oleg gripped his scepter. In an instant, his flesh and blood were encased in a specialized armor, as if he had donned a golden divine robe that radiated light across heaven and earth. Activating such a weapon consumed too much energy, which was why neither of them had done so earlier. In this mountain range, if one's essence qi were to be depleted prematurely, even this liquid armor wouldn't prevent their eventual death. Who doesn't have a divine robe? Qinming's body also began to glow. Suddenly, Oleg retreated without fighting and charged into the distance to rescue Elena. Among the experts of the Black Tower civilization, several had already been incinerated by Li Qingyu. Elena, severely wounded by Zhang Ran, was hiding behind the crowd. Half her body was covered in blood, and a fist-sized hole had been punched through her right chest. A group of people shielded her as Oleg rushed past, swept her up, and fled into the distance. Qinming and his two companions tore through the Black Tower civilization's forces and pursued the two saints. Grandmasters. Moments later, Oleg returned, this time accompanied by two burly grandmasters in their prime. He handed the golden scepter he had been carrying to one of them. Clearly, grandmasters from the Black Tower civilization had been lurking within the remnants of the flying immortal mountain range, and now the two factions had successfully rendezvoused. Let's go. Qinming and his companions made no move to engage, instead, they swiftly made their escape. Meanwhile, within the remnant veins, several terrifying phantom creatures wreathed in fire, ranging from grandmasters to great grandmasters, burst from the secret aperture of the sun and charged toward Qinming's group. We finally made it out of the mountains. Before Qinming could even breathe a sigh of relief, he saw the survivors from the Black Tower civilization, the demigod organization, and others converging with the grandmasters to surround them. Li Qingyu spoke up, the Xuanhuan region is no longer safe for us. Let's pass through the mist gate and head back to Yezhou for now. Hurry. Zhang Ran urged. Behind them, the expressions of the experts from the allied organizations shifted. What's going on? Those phantom creatures carrying true sunfire. They're all grandmasters, some even have the aura of great grandmasters. Why are they targeting us? They've been chasing us all this way. We need to speed up. We have to get ahead of the Jade Capital Saint and let him be the scapegoat. The group cried out in desperation. Qinming glanced back, a powerful sense of unease washing over him. He felt the phantoms were coming for him. Yet, his expression remained strange. The Black Tower civilization and the Pseudo-God Association are chasing me, isn't that actually helping me block the phantoms? Hey, look. It's someone we know up ahead. Zhang Ran exclaimed. Tang Yusheng and Bai Meng were flying ahead of them and had clearly spotted the group. Zhang Ran and Li Qingyu waved at the pair. After all, they were all part of the Jade Capital faction, gathering together would be better. Bai Meng grumbled, what terrible luck. We just got to the remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain, and before we could even get a bite to eat, we've already managed to piss everyone off. Why is the mountain going crazy? There's the aura of a grandmaster behind us. Tang Yusheng's expression changed instantly. Stop running. Let me give them something to really worry about. Qin Ming shouted, gesturing for the others to gather around him. He then turned to face the remnant veins of flying immortal mountain, clutching his decaying fan. The experts from the Black Tower Civilization and the Pseudo-God Association, including the Grandmasters, were all panicking. The phantoms behind them were about to catch up. Wait, are we wrong? Was the woman in the secret aperture of the sun enraged by one sword, rather than us? Are all the creatures after him? At this moment, Qin Ming's expression turned cold as he watched the figures about to charge him. Suddenly, he was ambushed. A foot inexplicably kicked him in the rear. Though not a heavy blow, it still startled him. What the hell? Qin Ming spun around and saw Tang Yusheng glaring at him. It really is you. Tang Yusheng confirmed. This man, whose face was concealed, was the same youth who had kicked her in the rear back at the Great Thunder Temple. He's one of us. Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran quickly intervened to stop them. Brother Ming, it really is you. Be magnanimous and let's put this behind us, Bai Meng said. Right now, Qin Ming truly couldn't afford to dwell on this. The pursuers were upon them. With a thunderous boom, he swung the decaying fan toward his opponents. A terrifying black storm instantly erupted, sweeping forward. He was certain that anyone in the fourth realm without special defensive equipment would surely perish. As for those in the fifth realm, he wasn't so sure, he didn't know the full extent of the fan's destructive power. Let's go. Without a single glance back, Qin Ming and his companions fled into the distance, racing toward the mist gate. Soon after, the woman in the secret aperture of the sun gave the phantom creatures a wind-quelling pearl and 2 sets of special ancient armor, then sent them to hunt the group down again. Several days later, Qin Ming and his companions were all heavily injured. Without the liquid armor to protect them, they would have certainly died. Bai Meng had suffered the most grievous injuries. Had the others not taken turns shielding him, he undoubtedly would have been reduced to a pile of ash. Only after traversing 5 distinct regions and passing through 5 separate gates of mist did they finally manage to shake off their pursuers. Qin Ming, those phantoms were all after you, weren't they? Tang Yusheng said, her sharp senses picking up on the fact that they had been dragged into this. Following Brother Ming is like getting beaten 9 times a day. Bai Meng said miserably. He was still young and had nearly died. Still shaken by the ordeal, he sighed, at least we're back in our home territory after passing through this mist gate. Brother Ming, goodbye. I'll see you off, Qin Ming said. As they were about to part, he watched Tang Yusheng turn her back to him, then suddenly kicked her hard, sending her flying through the mist gate. Go, now. He turned and ran. Zhang Ran and Li Qingyu were left speechless, yet they had no choice but to follow him in his hasty retreat. Sister, I want to go home. I don't want to go to Night Prefecture. Bai Meng's miserable cries echoed from behind. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 484, The Past Was Too Gentle. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Tang Yusheng was nearly driven to a frenzy. To be tricked at the very last moment. Her footsteps stumbled, and she felt threads of pain coursing through her. The mist gate was deep and mysterious, connecting 2 different worlds through the land of nothingness. By stepping through it, Tang Yusheng was about to return to the sacred race's territory. Sister, let's just head back to the Tai Shu for now, Bai Meng tried to dissuade her, but it was useless. Tang Yusheng's slender figure swayed like an immortal willow in the night wind, her balance unsteady. She steadied herself and immediately charged out. As her follower, Bai Meng had no choice but to follow. He knew the Saintess's temperament all too well. If she didn't catch them, she would hunt them all the way to Night Prefecture. The vegetation was lush, and the surroundings were filled with vibrant greenery. Yet, as Tang Yusheng approached, it felt as if heavy snow were falling. Her eyes resembled twin pools of frozen water, and a chilling aura radiated from her entire being, an icy presence that seemed capable of freezing everything in its path. At the final moment, she had actually believed the other party was kindly seeing her off, only to be hit with that final blow. Such an undignified experience was truly a stain on her reputation. Tang Yusheng was so furious she nearly exploded on the spot. Most crucially, this wasn't her first time experiencing this, she had actually stumbled into the exact same pit twice in her life. They got away so fast. She had only turned her head for a moment. When she charged out, the 3 of them had already vanished without a trace. This is unbearable. Unforgivable. Tang Yusheng, clad in a red dress, her crystalline black hair fluttering, her exquisite and flawless face covered in frost. At this moment, even if a heavenly immortal descended and personally recited the heart-calming scripture for her, it wouldn't quell the turmoil in her heart. She couldn't swallow this bitter pill until she had completely flattened that pit. That wretched brat. Tang Yusheng gritted her silver teeth, her bright eyes shooting out sword-like beams of light. That single kick had pushed her to the absolute limit of her fury. The night was vast and boundless. The sound of wings beating echoed from all directions as the birds in the forest, startled by the frigid aura radiating from Tang Yusheng, tore through the night mist and flew away. Standing a short distance away, Bai Meng couldn't help but shiver involuntarily. Tang Yusheng's graceful figure darted through the forest, weaving left and right, searching for the three of them. Then, she produced a pristine white mirror. Though merely a damaged relic, it radiated a divine power. As its surface swept across the woodland, it clearly revealed the figures of the three individuals. This was the Jade Mirror. Its name sounded similar to Jade Capital, and it was a renowned artifact from Tai Shu, highly esteemed among special weapons. At that very moment, both Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran wore peculiar expressions on their faces. You actually dared to kick her? Zhang Ran asked. A momentary impulse. Qin Ming smiled, shyly. Although he had delivered a dirty kick, it was best not to say too much about such things. Keeping a low profile was the way to go. Zhang Ran offered her assessment. You really don't let a grudge fester, you settle it right then and there, no matter the distance. Qin Ming corrected her. I don't have a grudge against her. It was just a momentary burst of youthful impetuousness. I couldn't hold back. Li Qingyu asked, are you really in such a good mood after kicking her? We escaped the remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain together, so we're practically comrades. It's not good to hurt our own. Qin Ming chose his words carefully. I didn't hurt her. She used her divine technique to protect her body, she felt hard as a rock. Zhang Ran burst out laughing. This answer was too blunt. He was definitely talking nonsense with a straight face, trying to quickly change the subject. The Jade Mirror had the ability to replay events that had occurred within a short time frame. The scene that had just unfolded, including the kick and the subsequent dialogue, was now being replayed with crystal clarity. Sweat broke out on Bai Meng's forehead as he thought to himself, Brother Qin is truly fearless, he really has the audacity to blurt out absolutely anything. Tang Yusheng's chest heaved with indignation. What nonsense is he spouting? After sneaking up and kicking me, he dares to comment like that. I really want to kill him. Sister, let's go back and recover from our injuries first, Bai Meng urged again. His experience in the remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain had been too traumatic. He missed home terribly and didn't want to wander aimlessly anymore. No. Tang Yusheng's tone was resolute. Holding the Jade Mirror, she sped through the forest. Qin Ming spoke up. Given Tang Yusheng's vindictive nature, she's almost certainly going to chase after us. We'd better activate our special artifacts to conceal our tracks. Who's the one holding a grudge, anyway? Tang Yusheng was itching to catch up to her target immediately. However, the figure reflected in the Jade Mirror gradually grew indistinct and blurred beyond recognition, forcing her to accelerate her pace. At night, Qin Ming felt restless. In the darkness, it seemed as if some qi mechanism had appeared, flowing in wisps and threads, coiling around his heart. Soon, a chill ran through him. He realized he was slumbering, yet he could not fully rouse himself, his eyelids remained stubbornly shut. He found himself trapped within a dreamscape he could not escape, confined within a swirling sea of mist. Then, he saw her. The mysterious woman from the secret aperture of the sun in the remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain. Her faint silhouette appeared in his dream, standing in midair and looking down at him. Though they were far apart, Qin Ming could clearly sense an unstoppable psychic domain flowing from the depths of the night mist world, spreading toward him, attempting to lock onto his position. Qin Ming realized that the woman in the crystal coffin was likely casting a spell, using a heaven-defying technique to attack him across the void. Lao Huang, protect me. He shouted within the mist. Unfortunately, the yellow canopy umbrella was an external object, not within his psychic domain. It was impossible for it to hear his inner whispers at this moment. Qin Ming grew anxious. An ancient powerhouse, suspected to be a heavenly immortal, was in the early stages of awakening in the distance. If she were to focus all her efforts on dealing with him, it would be truly terrifying. He had already fled so far, passing through 5 mist gates. Could she still track his traces? No, it must be the chi mechanisms left behind by those phantom creatures, guiding her and pinpointing my location. Could it be that a sliver of her spiritual will left Flying Immortal Mountain and personally pursued me? The moment this terrifying possibility crossed Qin Ming's mind, his scalp instantly went numb with dread. He realized that beautiful women tended to hold grudges. Right now, spanning from his dreams to reality, someone was actively hunting him down. Is she really about to appear? Qin Ming felt a strong sense of unease. As he grew anxious in the dream, the figure hanging high in the distant mist became clearer. He could even see the hazy features of her face as she approached, her robes fluttering gracefully. Could she be expanding her spiritual consciousness from afar and projecting it here through the void? He wondered. And if the mysterious woman continues to empower it, she might actually manifest and step out into the real world. Qin Ming's heart pounded. Against such unfathomable techniques, there was simply no defense. He desperately wanted to wake up and scream at the two women to run, but no matter how he struggled, it was all in vain. Old cloth. Qin Ming shot a quick glance and yanked the strange metal cloth toward him. The object was within his body, located at the edge of his spiritual domain, psychic domain, so it wasn't considered an external item. He swiftly yanked it into the palm of his spiritual manifestation, a hand formed of pure consciousness, to serve as a defensive shield. In an instant, the woman in the night mist's pupils dilated. Even someone of her status seemed shocked, as if she had witnessed something unbelievable. Clearly, she recognized the origins of tattered cloth. Swish. She dove forward, her dress fluttering. Her perfect face became clearly visible up close. She was truly a peerless beauty. Qin Ming activated the tattered cloth, using it to block his opponent as a last-ditch effort. He looked on in astonishment. It actually worked. Old cloth expanded far, growing larger just as it had during the battle with the innate golden body near the jade capital. The expanded old cloth ensnared the woman, forcing her to land on the ground made of strange metal. Moreover, the strange metal cloth severed the wisps of chi mechanism being projected from the void, cutting off the connection to the distant location. As old cloth's temporary owner, Qin Ming was receiving its preferential treatment for the first time, and today, it had actually come to his aid. That's right. That woman is unfathomably deep and terrifyingly strong. Old cloth is worried about its own trace and heavenly secret being exposed. Rather than helping me, it's cleaning up after itself. The next moment, Qin Ming was forced into a battle. He knew that once the strange metal cloth unfolded, this place would be transformed into a sword duel platform. Fellow Taoist, I may have offended you in the secret aperture of the sun a few days ago, but that was an unintentional act on my part, Qin Ming said, hoping to resolve the grudge. After her connection to the distant land was severed, the woman's eyes were no longer as deep. She even seemed momentarily bewildered, but her combat instincts remained intact. With a swish, she charged forward. Extreme yang fire spread, accompanied by extreme yin qi. A simple strike alone manifested the mysteries of yin-yang. She's not invincible. She's not much stronger than me. After a brief exchange, Qin Ming's heart gradually steadied, and he gained confidence. If she had been projected here with overwhelming power, she would have already made her move against him. Now that old cloth had severed the connection between this wisp of spirit and her true body, the mysterious woman was no longer unbeatable. Qin Ming threw himself completely into the fierce battle. By the end, his spiritual consciousness was bloodied and battered. This was a grueling fight, truly a life and death struggle. After fighting tooth and nail, he finally defeated his opponent. But a moment later, the woman's figure reappeared, standing motionless on the strange metal cloth like a clay sculpture or a wooden carving. Is she dead? Qin Ming walked over and examined her closely. On a whim, he couldn't resist touching her, and as a result, she revived once again. He groaned, coughing up blood. Forced to drag his exhausted body into another battle against the woman in her prime, he nearly sent himself to the grave. Qin Ming gasped for air, sitting far away, no longer daring to activate her carelessly. He realized that old cloth had imprisoned a wisp of the woman's spiritual consciousness, stripped of its sentience, here to serve as his sparring partner, a terrifying whetstone capable of tempering his very bones and sinews. Far away, in an unknown realm, a spectral figure hovered in midair. The very night sky shattered around her, clouds disintegrated into dust, and the air crackled with lightning and thunder. She had used a mystical technique to send a wisp of spiritual light to a distant place, but it had lost connection. Had someone severed it? Qin Ming's blurred silhouette was reflected in her eyes, and then she began to project her power again. In the dream, Qin Ming's scalp tingled. Old cloth had captured 3 of the woman's figures, which stood like immortal statues, lifelike and vivid, on the platform formed by the strange metal cloth. Qin Ming could distinctly sense that the latter 2 figures were even more powerful than the first. Fortunately, they remained standing in motionless silence. As long as I don't provoke them or actively activate them, they won't awaken. Qin Ming looked on in astonishment. The 3 figures seemed to have become tools for him to use. He realized once again that old cloth was somewhat perverted, its methods were superb, yet it never showed its true colors or responded to him in the ordinary world. Am I finally getting to enjoy a few of the temporary owner's privileges for the first time? Qin Ming decided that if he ever wanted to test his new techniques, he could simply come into his dreams, spar with that woman here, and hone his various new insights. In that unknown realm, the ethereal silhouette of the woman hovered high above the firmament. Her eyes, deep and fathomless, cast no forth projection, instead, she simply soared forward. Qingyu, wake up. Zhang Ran, you're drooling. After breaking free from the dream, Qinming immediately called out to the two women beside him. They couldn't stay here any longer, they had to get moving. Zhang Ran, with her immortal-like beauty, was very mindful of her image and retorted instantly, "You're the one drooling. Why are you drenched in sweat?" Li Qingyu asked, looking at Qinming. "The woman from the remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain is so powerful she's almost demonic. She sent wisps of her power to invade my dream. We need to run, now." Upon hearing this, both women looked on in astonishment. The relentless pursuit stemming from the depths of the secret aperture of the sun had, it seemed, not yet come to an end. Originally, Zhang Ran and Li Qingyu planned to head south, one to the Mystic Maiden Palace and the other to find Tushita Palace. Now it seemed the Flying Immortal Mountain area was temporarily impassable and couldn't be crossed for the time being. Maybe we should head back to Night Prefecture first and wait a while before continuing our journey. The three of them hurriedly departed, not daring to linger at their current location. The Tai Shu, a place wielding immense influence throughout this entire region, standing as a veritable hegemonic power. Legend has it that, in ages past, it served as the very nexus where the earthly projection of the celestial city, Jade Capital, converged with the mortal realm. Holding a token of authority, Tang Yusheng mobilized a large force in the nearby area to track the three individuals. A look of surprise crossed her face as she remarked, "They actually still have the leisure to go exploring." After passing through another mist gate, Qinming and his two companions learned of ruins appearing in this region and immediately rushed to investigate. Several days later, Zhang Ran, Li Qingyu, and Qinming emerged from an underground river. Behind them, the entire landscape was filled with the wails of ghosts and gods. Though they were protected by special weapons, they were still in terrible shape, bleeding from their noses and mouths. They had recently ventured deep into a GN nest, and nearly perished. Sigh, no wonder they say pioneering is never a small matter, it's a constant gamble with life and death, Qinming lamented. In the night mist world, every peaceful place blessed with spiritual auspiciousness was occupied by a great sect. Finding opportunities on one's own was incredibly difficult. From the vast remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain to this region's GN nest, every place held immense danger. What's happening? Are there really this many ruins scattered across this territory? I hear that just 800 li away, a mysterious sword scripture has just surfaced. The three of them proceeded with caution. Near an underground palace, Qinming sensed a powerful surge of emotion and immediately understood the situation. Tang Yusheng had pursued him, leveraging her influence as a Tai Shu overlord to sway local factions and spread the news of the mysterious sword scripture's appearance. Her true goal was to lure Qinming here. "Yusheng, the sword scripture is incomplete. Remember to bring the full version next time for me to devour." This was the message Qinming had left behind after resonating with the fragmented scripture. Furthermore, he had left behind the sword intent he had derived from the scripture, proving he had indeed comprehended its essence. When Tang Yusheng discovered the message that day, her chest tightened with fury. She had deliberately left a chaotic, incomplete version of the sword scripture, yet he had still managed to extract its true meaning for free. Was there any justice left in this world? What infuriated her most was his flippant tone, a blatant provocation. This time, Qinming and his companions did not linger. They pressed on, passing through a total of 13 mist gates before finally reaching the outskirts of Night Prefecture. "I wonder how Night Prefecture has fared," Li Qingyu murmured. "Have they quelled the calamity from the heavens?" It had been over a year since she and Zhang Ran had departed. Zhang Ran said, "To be safe, let's lay low for a while, observe carefully, and take this time to heal our injuries." Even after many days had passed, the two women and Qinming were not yet fully recovered. Their situation had been dire when they were besieged by the creatures of the secret aperture of the sun. Two phantom grandmasters, clad in the remnant armor of Tiān and Sun and wielding the wind-fixing pearl, had pursued them relentlessly, nearly killing them several times. Pioneering and exploring are truly not easy. Qinming remarked, feeling the weight of his words. However, he had now reached the mid-stage fourth realm, which was his greatest gain. The journey had been well worth it. The Kui clan. If they still fail to recognize their limits and continue to seek trouble with me, I'll be able to settle the score with a whole host of them this time. Qinming's eyes gleamed with sharp intensity as he gazed toward the depths of Night Prefecture. In fact, over the past year, Qichong had grown brimming with confidence. He had returned to Night Prefecture, abandoning his former low-profile and conflict-avoidant style. Now, he sought to challenge some old acquaintances, with Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran even appearing on his list of targets for sword testing. I wonder how Qinming is doing. Recently, members of the Kui family had begun to mention the name they usually avoided. By all accounts, he should still be far from the fourth realm. After Qinming and his two companions returned, they all kept a low profile, each focusing on healing their injuries. It took a full month before they had basically recovered. One could only imagine how dangerous this journey had been. It had truly damaged their very essence, tearing their spiritual domain. Only after a long period of nurturing did they fully recover. After healing, Qinming did not rush to emerge from seclusion. Instead, he focused on comprehending various true scriptures and secret manuals. Holding the emerald green wood core from the secret aperture of the sun, he elevated his longevity sword intent to an entirely new level. At this moment, he stood upon a green leaf. In his hand, he condensed a budding twig that radiated vibrant vitality, while a faint longevity force surged all around him. I can now unleash 4 swords in succession, each one stronger than the last. At this rate, could I be transforming toward a longevity Dao body within a single domain? Qinming's eyes were deep as he pondered the possibilities. He remained in seclusion, continuing his spiritual contemplation. In the dead of night, Qinming snapped his eyes open. A sudden, sharp pang of dread seized him, his hair standing on end. He felt as if his very being were about to disintegrate. In an instant, he raised the yellow canopy umbrella for protection and wrapped his consciousness in the tattered cloth. Almost instantaneously, he witnessed an utterly inconceivable, and truly terrifying, sight. In the distance, a colossal, glowing footprint materialized. A city, its lights once soft and warm against the pitch-black earth, was instantly extinguished by the night mist. In a heartbeat, it was transformed into a dead domain, filled with swirling black ash. Qinming had never experienced such a suffocating sensation before. It was truly too terrifying, his very soul trembled in its wake. The glowing footprint was colossal, large enough to engulf an entire city. Yet, no creature appeared, no body attached to the footprint could be seen. Silently and without a trace, a city had been annihilated, its living beings slaughtered in the dead silence. Qinming shuddered violently. This is the vast and boundless night mist world, he realized. When its true and cruel nature is revealed, merely surviving is a stroke of luck. At this moment, so-called grand ambitions and noble ideals seemed ethereal, faint, and completely faded. In the truly terrifying night mist world, survival was the only priority. To breathe, to still be alive, was already an immense struggle. Qinming's entire body ran cold. Looking back at his past hardships and tribulations, they now seemed peaceful, even, gentle. They were, in truth, nothing at all compared to this. What lay before his eyes, however, was utterly despair-inducing. No sooner had that glowing footprint descended here than another appeared on the horizon, at the very edge of the earth. It was a second footprint, and there stood a colossal city, even grander in scale than the first. It disintegrated instantly, mists of blood rose into the air, followed by a shower of drifting ash that rained down from the heavens. Along the path between the two glowing footprints, spanning the distance between them, lay various villages, towns, and settlements inhabited by strange entities. Although no glowing footprints had landed directly upon them, they, too, were struck by the mysterious residual shockwaves. Some small cities and villages spontaneously burst into flames, countless living beings perished, while those who survived were driven to madness, their eyes vacant and unfocused as they stood with gaping mouths, screaming ceaselessly at nothing. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 485, The World Changes Too Fast. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The night, the flames, and the drifting ash raining down from the heavens, all permeated the air with a sense of utter despair, accompanied by the frenzied roars that echoed through the night mist. Qinming's body grew cold, and even his soul dimmed. It was as if he had fallen into a pitch-black abyss. The colossal, glowing footprint struck his inner world with overwhelming force. The world is a conflagration of calamity. These simple words encapsulated his truest feelings at that very moment. In an instant, the giant city was reduced to black ash. Not a single person uttered a sound as they perished forever in a heartbeat. The 10,000 homes ablaze were extinguished in a flash. Qinming left the mountain range where he had been in seclusion. His heart pounding, he approached the village outside the mountains, an area on the outskirts affected by the glowing footprint. Flames roared toward the sky. Every house was engulfed in fire. The villagers, their eyes hollow, all gazed up at the heavens. Flames erupted from their heads, and raspy, guttural sounds escaped their throats. Qinming attempted to extinguish the fires and render aid, but he soon realized it was utterly futile. Their very consciousness had been ignited, burning from the inside out, both their physical forms and their spirits were rapidly withering away. Hide. I need to hide. After attempting spiritual resonance, Qinming captured nearly identical fragments of thought from their fractured and frenzied consciousness. The repetition sent a chill down his spine. Everyone's gaze was unfocused and scattered, having lost all sense of self and will, they merely growled like wild beasts. Only a few still clung to a shred of instinct. A woman struggled to push her child out of the village, but it was useless. Both mother and child were already engulfed in flames. Qinming tried to save them again, but the fire wouldn't go out. Their very souls were the fuel for the blaze. The child seemed to retain a flicker of consciousness. He clung to his mother's arm and cried out one last time, "Mother." Then, mother and child collapsed in agony and despair. "Mother, I'm scared." In a town 15 li away, a blind girl trembled. All around her, the fires consuming the town cast a crimson glow across the night sky. Qinming realized that the purer a soul's intent, the more of its primal will remained intact. Yet, this could not alter one's fate. The blind girl's soul, too, had been set ablaze. It was a tragedy unfolding scene after scene. Qinming passed through many villages and towns caught in the calamity, witnessing one human tragedy after another. The souls of those people were burned hollow. Their final, frantic wills all pleaded, hide, escape. As the fires gradually died down, the world fell silent. The affected villages and towns had all become lands of ash, as if they had been erased from existence. Long after, in Qinming's field of vision, the two giant glowing footprints finally faded and vanished. Only then did he move forward, circling far around to observe. There lay a medium-sized city, home to 800,000 souls, yet it was smaller even than the big toe of those glowing footprints he had seen earlier. Now utterly destroyed, the site was shrouded in absolute darkness. Beneath the night mist, at the edge of the horizon, stood a colossal metropolis, roughly the size of half a glowing footprint, now lying utterly lifeless and desolate. Lingering near the two cities that had been reduced to ash, Qinming sensed the residual echoes of chaotic emotion, still dominated by those same few keywords. Soon, the lingering emotions also dissipated in the night wind, leaving nothing behind. Before any outsiders could arrive, Qinming quietly slipped away. That same day, news spread, an indescribable creature had crossed the land. Its form was unseen, yet massive, glowing footprints descended, trampling across Night Prefecture and bringing utter devastation. Like a hurricane, the news swept through the region. Is it a heavenly god, walking toward decay and destruction? Many people immediately drew this connection. No matter how one looked at it, its destructive power far exceeded the realm of Earth immortals. Its display was simply too terrifying. It traveled through the night, crossing mountains, trampling cities, and even stepping into forbidden zones. Wherever it passed, those glowing footprints incinerated everything. Before those footprints, all things twisted and perished. Where it passed, silence reigned supreme. The unknown creature seemed to be fleeing from something, journeying through the night mist. It was like a human traveling, never glancing down at the ants crushed beneath their feet. For the living beings who perished, this was a truly tragic fate. One must realize that along its entire route, the death toll, encompassing both humans and non-human entities, was staggering. The combined total amounted to at least 20 million lives. It was a catastrophe on a scale never before witnessed. People were desperate to know, what was this entity? And why was such a calamity unfolding? Unfortunately, in the end, no one could describe its form, for it was utterly formless, only footprints remained. Perhaps there was an upheaval deep within the night mist world, and some terrifying monster was fleeing. Finally, after carefully inspecting various regions, an old earth immortal from the heavens spoke these words, leaving everyone's hearts heavy. This world was too vast, the night mist boundless. Even a heavenly god could never reach its end. Even a power as formidable as the Supreme Realm was, in the grand scheme of things, merely a renowned spiritual haven situated within that boundless, mist-shrouded world. Yujing, the Jade Capital, was regarded as a supreme and peerless sanctuary within the domain of Night Province. Yet, when viewed in the context of the deeper regions of the Night Mist world, its true standing remained an enigma. After all, over a year ago, even the inverted Jade Capital had disintegrated and shattered. It was not truly transcendent beyond the heavens, everything had its lifespan. In the days that followed, many major organizations, noble clans, and practitioners of various paths scoured ancient texts, digging for the truth, searching for any similar tragedies in history. There are actually some fragmentary clues, involving some vague records, someone said, having found an anecdote in a rare book. The crows fly in the heaven, the pung hides in the nether, Qilin's blood erupts from the earth, and all living beings in the domain are utterly exterminated. This was not a chronicle of the bloody calamity that had just befallen Night Province, rather, it was an ancient tale that had drifted out from the depths of the Night Mist world. There is more, another voice added, having discovered yet another passage. On the day of earth splitting, the dragon fell into the abyss, the coon sank into the nether, the heavenly gods fled to the wilderness, and the long life grass and trees turned to ash. Undoubtedly, this was yet another terrible event that had taken place in the depths of the night mist world. Though there were rough, handwritten accounts, there were no details, making it impossible to uncover the true nature of the event. Even those in the heavens were involved. An Earth immortal gloomily declared that the matter should be dropped, as it was too dangerous to investigate. The horrors of the night mist world's depths far exceeded anyone's understanding. Many felt a suffocating pressure. A single, inexplicable creature had swept through, leaving total destruction in its wake and causing over 20 million beings to perish. This world was too dangerous. After visiting the scene to observe the aftermath, several master practitioners felt a heavy constriction in their hearts. If Night Province, a mere isolated corner of the realm, could fall victim to such a calamity, then what unspeakable horrors must truly lie hidden within the unfathomable depths of the Night Mist world? Don't overthink it, someone offered a reasonable theory. I suspect the overall environment of the world has changed. It's not just the territories under Jade Capital's rule, the entire Night Mist world is undergoing a violent transformation. Perhaps the high-level beings encountered a problem and are now fleeing. Over the past few days, Qin Ming, Li Qingyu, and Zhang Ran had been exchanging messages and confirming each other's safety. After learning about the current situation in Night Prefecture, the two women returned to the beyond the mortal realm. With a mysterious woman blocking the path at the remnant veins of Flying Immortal Mountain and now the appearance of these inexplicable glowing footprints, the world was growing increasingly chaotic. Consequently, Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran both became more cautious and temporarily halted their travels. It's good that Uncle Meng and the others are safe. I wonder how Shang Yiwu and Xiao Wu are doing, and where they are now. Qin Ming did not return to Kaisha City. Several days later, news arrived from the outer domain regions. Wherever the glowing footprints passed, calamity struck. Even the demon faction's ancient imperial capital had been destroyed. The spread of this news sent shockwaves through the entire region under the Jade Capital's influence. The high-ranking members of various races were utterly shaken. A Grandmaster sighed, the world is falling into chaos. I feel this world is tearing away its gentle facade in a cruel, cold-blooded manner, revealing its true, brutal face. As if to confirm his words, half a month later, a wandering master returned from the lands beyond the Jade Capital with a piece of news. In the distant lands, the Qilin's toe has been spotted. Rumor had it that deep within the Night Mist world, a glowing beast's toe was fleeing, destroying major cities and crushing top-tier Dao lineages along its path. Though called the Qilin's toe, it was actually a blood-red toe print like the evening glow, so immense that no one knew what creature it belonged to. It had been sacralized in the stories told by terrified beings. Whenever the slightest disturbance arises in the depths of the Night Mist world, chaos inevitably follows here in our peripheral regions. Fortunately, all the turmoil gradually subsided over the following 6 months. During this time, Qin Ming cultivated in seclusion in the deep mountains, comprehending the Tao and practicing his techniques, only occasionally venturing out to learn of the world's events. Too much had happened in the Night Prefecture over the past 2 years. Ever since the old factions in the sky were reprimanded by the great figures of the Jade Capital, they had completely changed their ways. After the Heaven Lock was torn asunder, they made no further attempts to patch it up. However, the regions that had already been locked down remained unsealed. At the same time, the so-called spiritual chains and Dao chains were no longer used. From then on, those people in the sky showed some sincerity, strictly following the Jade Capital edict to carefully select talents and grant them opportunities. Some of the Night Prefecture's founding ancestors returned, and immortal seeds and divine seeds began to appear one after another. Some noble clans and major organizations had even ascended to the heavens, where certain immortal and divine seeds received the nourishment of secret medicine above the 9 heavens. Expecting some old factions to completely lower their heads is probably asking too much. But, deterred by the might of the Jade Capital, they are now indeed drawing closer to the people on the ground, making compromises and concessions. This was the reality Qin Ming discovered upon emerging from his seclusion in the deep mountains. Among these developments, the great unification of Night Prefecture was proceeding in an orderly manner and was nearly complete. This was because the Jade Capital's powerful figures had mentioned it when disciplining those old factions. Now, everyone, both in the heavens and on the ground, knew that the era of the 3 great dynasties and 10 dynasties coexisting was coming to a definitive end. All parties were now cooperating to establish a powerful Earth Immortal dynasty. There's a saying that after the great unification, the throne will be blessed with a special Dao resonance, and an incredibly powerful Earth Emperor will emerge. Ever since this rumor surfaced, the competition among the 3 great dynasties had intensified. Deep within the Earth of Night Prefecture, there are things that cannot be dug up or found. Even if a high-ranking god descended and delved into the depths, they would find nothing. For this very reason, the Jade Capital, once it descended, never left. Legend has it that only a great unified Earth immortal dynasty, empowered by a special Tao resonance, could possibly draw forth the things hidden beneath the earth. But only possibly. After all, Night Prefecture had been unified before, and while such unification did succeed in drawing forth certain mysterious entities, it failed to retrieve them all. This was the essence of the various rumors that had been spreading across the land over the past 6 months, and many had come to believe them. There was even a more astonishing claim: the Jade Capital would eventually descend to the ground and merge with a great unified dynasty. If that were to happen, the impact would be truly immense. Thus, the position of the Earth Emperor became critically important. Many grew red-eyed with envy, all coveting the throne. Over the past few months, the pace at which the 3 great dynasties were merging had noticeably accelerated. This was primarily because a powerful figure in the Jade Capital had reportedly awakened for a second time, emphasizing this matter once more: if no progress was made within 2 years, the old factions would be severely punished. Furthermore, when the time for accountability came, both new and old debts would be settled together. Even top-tier Earth immortals could face execution. The Great Rui dynasty is out. This news broke abruptly. Back then, when the Earth immortals descended from the heavens, the Great Rui imperial clan had immediately knelt and offered their own submission. Yet, in the end, they were the first to be eliminated, a turn of events that caught everyone completely by surprise. How did it come to this? This was the question many were desperate to answer. Within the Great Rui imperial clan, a thick cloud of despair hung over them. They had knelt the most thoroughly, yet the position of Earth Emperor had been permanently snatched from their grasp. It's reported that the founding ancestors of various paths and the 7 Convergence Realm have returned from the outer domain. They've even brought along some reinforcements, and they're all united in opposing the Great Rui imperial clan's ascension. Upon hearing this, the crowd first reacted with astonishment, then broke into smiles. They felt this was only right. Subsequently, the Great Tiān imperial clan was also eliminated. The situation was shifting faster than anyone could have imagined. In just these few days, various factions had joined forces to push forward, and a consensus on the great unification of the surface world was rapidly being reached. A powerful figure in the Jade Capital has been repeatedly urging this matter. The old factions in the heavens grew desperate and decided to compromise with the surface world to accelerate the process. If the Earth Immortals in the heavens had insisted on pushing the Great Rui to power, the founding ancestor, the Dog Sword Immortal, and the 7 Convergence Realm on the surface might have joined forces with the ancestor of the Silk Book, the old barbarian god, and other powerful figures to oppose them, which would have sparked a major conflict. Those old factions had suffered under their rule and were filled with hatred and resentment. If not for the warning from a being within the Jade Capital, they would have likely launched an all-out campaign to exterminate them. With that, everything was finally settled. The Great Yu imperial dynasty emerged victorious, and the monumental achievement of the Great Unification was theirs to right. Even if Great Rui and Great Tiān remained unwilling, they were powerless to change the outcome. This was the result endorsed by all the powerhouses in the heavens and on the ground. No one could defy it. The dozen or so other dynasties could only bow their heads in submission. As for the great organizations and noble clans with their own cities and fiefs, they too had nothing to say. Who would dare disobey the divine decrees of the Earth Immortals and the 7 Convergence Realm? On this day, it became known to the entire world, Night Prefecture had achieved complete unification. Furthermore, on that very day, a strange phenomenon appeared. From the endless black sky in the void, wisps of Tao resonance descended, gathering toward the Great Yu imperial capital. Ordinary people couldn't see it, but anyone who had cultivated spiritual eyes or the divine eye could see clearly that the entire imperial capital had actually brightened by several degrees because of it. Cultivating here is significantly faster. Someone exclaimed in astonishment. What sent the most shockwaves through people's hearts was that a few geniuses of the Great Yu imperial family seemed to have undergone a purification and nourishment, enhancing their innate talent and other attributes. This. Could the influence of a great unified Earth Immortal dynasty truly be so immense? Upon hearing the news, the countenances of many old figures among the upper echelons of various factions shifted. In truth, even those dwelling above the 9 heavens were struck with astonishment. There are records of such a thing. A similar event occurred in Taishu long ago. Even after the Jade Capital departed Taishu, the Earth Emperor clan maintained its transcendent status, declaring itself a sacred race. Every generation since has seen the emergence of divinely gifted prodigies. This was the information the ancient Earth Immortals above the 9 heavens had uncovered after personally scouring the archives. Even their own hearts wavered as various schemes and desires took root. You must understand, this is only the beginning. The heaven-worshipping ceremony hasn't even taken place, yet such changes have already occurred. Some of the old figures above the 9 heavens experienced violent emotional turmoil. Had they known this sooner, they would have sought to get involved. Sending their own people to the Great Unification would be far better than anything else. Seek a marriage alliance. Station personnel in the Great U imperial capital. Acquire fiefs within Great U and become regional lords. This was the countermeasure that immediately sprang to their minds. They wanted to get involved, to hunt for opportunities and claim a share of the spoils. The reactions of the major organizations on the ground were no slower than those above the 9 heavens. On that very day, numerous prominent clans and major sects dispatched their most heavyweight figures to the imperial capital of Great Yu, Changsha City. They declared their full support for Great Yu, pledging comprehensive cooperation. The unspoken implication was clear: they were participants, not mere observers, and intended to secure corresponding status and benefits. For instance, some had set their sights on the position of national preceptor, leading top-tier Taoist lineages to secretly compete for the role. They understood that this position could bring immense benefits. The national preceptor would rise in status alongside the Great Unification, receiving special Tao resonance infusions and blessings. Naturally, there were those who wished to marry a princess of the royal clan and become a prince consort. For a time, Changsha City was bustling with activity, attracting even those from the heavens. Qin marveled at how much Knight Prefecture had changed in such a short time. After a period of bitter cultivation and extensive travels, he finally returned to Kaisha City and met with Meng Xinghai at the city lord's manor. "Uncle Meng, what's your take on this? Sit down and let's discuss it slowly," old Meng said with a smile. He was inwardly delighted. Qin had been in secluded cultivation for a year and had traveled far beyond, disappearing for a full year and a half before returning. Meng Xinghai explained, after achieving the Great Unification, the Great Yu has somehow gained heaven's favor, destined for a meteoric rise. Major organizations are now actively maneuvering to reap the benefits. Changsha City has become a hub of fame and fortune. The two talked for a long time. Old Meng even suggested that Qin head to Changsha City to try his luck. Qin shook his head. "I've always believed that cultivation depends on one's own efforts. For now, I'll watch from this remote place." Meng Xinghai suddenly remembered something. "Oh, right. Half a year ago, Kui Chong sent a letter. What was it about?" Qin asked. Meng Xinghai set down his teacup. "I haven't read it yet, but I can guess. He probably wants to challenge you to a Tao debate. He's really getting ahead of himself," Qin sneered. He tore open the letter and read it carefully. It was exactly as Meng Xinghai had guessed. Meng Xinghai said, displeased, "Does he think it's honorable to use his higher realm to challenge someone in a lower one?" Qin smiled. "Hard to say. We don't actually know who's at a higher realm anymore." "What?" Meng Xinghai was stunned. He stared at the young, confident face before him, his heart pounding. What kind of cultivation speed is this? It's godlike. He's improved too fast. Qin put down the letter. Kui Chong left a message. He said that once I reach the 4th realm, I can challenge him to a fair Tao debate. He claims he can't suppress his own cultivation to the 3rd realm anymore, even if he tries his best. 1 month later, the Great Yu dynasty held its grand sacrifice to heaven. On that day, a myriad of celestial phenomena manifested. Radiant holy chariots, drawn by dragon steeds, descended from the skies. Heavenly dragons coiled majestically above the imperial capital. Divine phoenixes swooped down from above, and auspicious mists rose and swirled in abundance. The imperial capital of Great Yu, Changsha City, continued to undergo astonishing transformations. At the same time, the various major organizations sensed it as well. Having become involved in the affairs of the Great Yu dynasty, they, too, began to reap certain benefits, as waves of profound Tao rhythms surged toward them. The Jade capital has vanished. Up in the heavens, the inhabitants of the various ancient mountain peaks were utterly shaken. Even some old figures whose lifespans were nearing their end emerged, gazing up at the heavens. The place where the Jade capital once stood was now completely empty. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.